the capital plan is one of those fungible items that changes like the weather. What's here now is as of this past week. So we could have new items come in and be added to it between now and town meeting. We have a meeting for the 19th, which will be our next one, September 19th, to finalize everything and make recommendations at that point. We don't have a number from the town administrator to deal with yet because he doesn't have one. So until we have something like that, all we can do is put a lot of stuff on the wall, throw darts at it, and say, well, that looks good. But we can't make any, practical recommendations until such time as we know what we're dealing with.
Do you have anything in particular that your committee is specifically interested in?
Well, one of the things that's gonna be happening is, we need new school buses. And one of the things that we discussed at the last meeting specifically was to find some way to get school buses to be a budgetary item rather than one of these fly by the seat of your pants every year. So that they would automatically get into a program where we would automatically replace so many buses a year over a time frame, whatever the life expectancy of a bus is, and however many, and try to get a program in place for that, because we're always playing this game with buses.
So you want just a constant turnover, so a cycle like
It would
the
almost,
police do?
it makes more sense. I mean, it took us a long time to get that way with the police, because with the police, it was one of these footballs. They come in, well, we need 6, now, well, we'll do for 3, well, we can recycle that. It made no sense. You know these things are gonna wear out, you know they're gonna put X amount of mileage on them, you know they're gonna get X amount of wear and tear. And you can only run these things for so long because before they become a safety issue. So whether or not we'll be able to, going forward, get the school buses on that kind of a program, I don't know, but that's what we're kind of aiming for.
Anything else in addition to that?
My trip to France, but that never passed. Got shut down.
Well, you were going to first class, so no.
Oh, that was the problem. I knew there was a reason. Yeah, there's one other thing that hasn't got onto the capital plan at the moment that will come up at the next meeting, but that's gonna be one we'll pick up with sewer. This is a little minor sewer issue to deal with, and it's only $10 million.
Only.
All right.
Yeah, notice the silence in the room at that point.
It's only money. I mean, that's one, I'll probably defer to Guy to explain it a little better than I will.
Okay.
But it's not on the capital plan at the moment, but it will be at the next meeting.
Even though it's subsidized through enterprise funds, it still probably
Right.
shows on the plan.
Yeah, it will show on the plan. Everything that shows on the plan here is potential liability that the town has. As you know, when you look at this plan and you look at the items, pick anything, the Board of Health for 2020 has got a 4-wheel drive SUV. Well, they may or may not get that. That's on their wish list. That they may or may not need that in light of the needs of other departments. So, I mean, that number is there, but it could disappear through one of two things. One, we could get a vehicle and do it, or it could be just move forward into 21, because nothing happens this year with it. I mean, our charge basically is to recommend. We don't have any decision-making authority on that, on what gets bought or what doesn't get bought. I mean, we have trouble making a decision on whether we're gonna have coffee with cream and sugar or not. You know, you have to, you know, go with the flow. But we will recommend, you know, when we see what monies we have available, we will make specific recommendations to the town administrator, but bottom line is, it's gonna be his decision at the end. Because even though we make a decision, he goes along with it today, 3 days from now, something else shows up that, you know, bumps something off that list that's happened before, so,
And your people frequently go out and do on-site inspections
yes,
of the vehicles, et cetera, et cetera.
yep.
So your evaluation is well founded.
Well, we hope so. We think it is, but that's all subject to interpretation too.
Any questions of the committee?
Yeah,
Oh, don't stop.
back to the school buses. Do we have enough school buses now?
We have enough school buses when we replace the ones that are sick.
Okay.
Numbers wise, yes, operationally, not necessarily.
We have enough so that the school, and this is according to the superintendent,
Right.
we have enough so that all school bus runs will be covered. We do not have any reserve. So as a consequence, if one bus breaks
It's
down, then we're in trouble.
Yeah.
We don't want to be like the MBTA. So, and another item that Jim mentioned, we did not have school buses on the capital plan this year. They were on last year. This year, 2020, just happened to be an aberration. We did not have any, but 21, 22, 23, we had scheduled to have new school buses. So it wasn't as if we never thought about it, or the school never thought about it. They do recognize that we do need to have a replacement plan. Just this particular year, it was not listed on the capital plan.
Yeah, well, I can see where you're talking about having enough buses, but no spares, that's bad. And,
What happened,
do we have enough to cover? What I'm thinking of is the growth factor.
we had,
We might have a growth factor here.
School isn't growing,
No, the school's not growing at the moment.
not growing, it's going
But
the other
it's
way.
not, maybe it's not growing now, but it could. So we have, it is something we should have in a plan.
well, there is a plan for the school as far as population changes over the next few years. As a matter of fact, that's the reason that we're building a new school.
Yes.
So that's been taken into consideration. What happened, just to clarify things, was that 3 of the school buses failed state inspection last month. We had 3 extras that could have been used. 3 of them failed state inspection for rust on the frames. They're not repairable. They're taken out of service. So this was not something that it was a surprise, let's put it that way. But as of last spring, we had 3 extra buses for reserve. So it's not completely just bad planning, it's also bad luck.
Okay. All right. Okay.
One other thing that Jim didn't point out was that if one looks at the projections for capital needs over the next few years, typically, without water pollution control facility, we're in the range of $2 to $4 million a year that we project that we need for capital plan, capital improvements and capital equipment. We do not have that much money. So as a consequence, we're looking at, in the fall town meeting, we're looking at free cash. What do we have that comes in as free cash that we can put towards capital equipment? The town is very tight on that, and it's a decision at the end that's made by Derek in conjunction with the capital planning committee as to where the money goes. So someone may not get $40,000 for a new vehicle, they may end up getting an old vehicle.
I just wanna make sure that we are thinking about it in the future
Yes,
and not be surprised by it when we need it.
we try. We try,
We
We-
always try, but
But-
we fail a lot.
but we don't fail for lack of trying.
That's true.
Anything,
Okay,
Jody?
You know, I got a couple of questions, and part of it's the whole process. You know, I'm looking at the list here in all the town buildings. Do you have an inventory of all the town buildings on file somewhere?
Municipal maintenance does, but Derek does also.
In the rolling stock, the buses or
Yes.
motor or,
Yes.
okay. The other thing is, I keep hearing the town administrator being brought up. For the sake of argument, let's say this committee and the selectmen voted to approve a loader for the DPW. Can he just reject that and it doesn't get into the warrant?
Nope, too much money.
He can, yes,
Yes,
the answer to your
yes, he
question is
can.
yes.
Yes,
Yes, he has that authority.
he has that for
But does it depend on the amount of money? He
Well-
can't approve something, am I right, Dave?
No.
Is it- Yeah, no, there's an amount of money that he cannot override. Right, Dave?
Well,
How's it work?
if we don't have the cash available,
You can't buy
we're
it.
not gonna buy it.
Oh,
Even
he has
if
the ultimate authority.
it turns out that we need it. And
I get the money part of it, but the follow-up part of that is, let's say,
He can do what he wants to do.
And I don't think
maintenance
that's
comes
right.
in and they gotta prioritize, they want a truck with a plow, a John Deere loader.
Right.
And, I don't know, a pickup truck with a plow on it.
right?
And they prioritize these three items, you know, one might be one's $200,000 projected
Right.
and one's $60,000 projected. So he might, and the 60 is the third thing on the list, so he could just go forward and just take that $60,000
No,
item.
I don't believe so. I believe it's only, he can't spend more than $10,000 without approval, am I right, Claire?
Well, he does need
25.
approval, of course,
He
yeah.
needs to, yeah, he cannot
Yes.
just go in and spend it. Anything over $10,000 has to be approved by.
Don't worry about the spending, Pam.
But
He's
if
going
town,
the
Think
other
about the
way.
rejection
He's saying,
part.
Okay,
No,
all
can
right,
he not spend it?
Oh, can he not spend it? Yeah, he
Okay,
cancel anything he wants, if
All right.
the town votes for it.
excuse me, if town meeting approves it, he does not have to spend it.
Right,
right,
That's correct.
But he cannot spend anything on his own without approval of the town meeting.
I understand that, but I'm thinking of, you know, as a department head coming in with my prioritized list, and maybe meeting with this committee and the selectmen and all the committees around town, I'll leave it at that, and say, okay, we're really prioritizing these things, but he could nix the whole,
think about it this way, you're in a corporation, and there's a vice president
yep,
that has 10 departments, town departments under him. And each one comes and says, oh, I want this, I want this, I want this. And the vice president says, I'm sorry, Jody, we can't afford that this year.
yeah, but
Where's it gonna go?
I get all that part, I'm just trying, as I said, I'm trying to figure out the whole system here, you know, I mean, I look at a budget item and it might say, you know, the selectmen doesn't recommend this, the town meeting, but the finance committee and the department.
Town meeting can vote for it.
Right, but
Town
they
meeting
don't have to
can-
buy it, I get that.
Town meeting can override
Yep,
the articles,
Yep.
the items on the article.
yep, okay. I'm really curious about the inventory of the,
We do have an inventory.
Yeah. The actual purchase of anything is in the hands of the town administrator per charter. They are the only, he is the only authorized or certified purchasing agent for the town.
procurement officer.
It would be helpful for this report if you went back and showed us the last 3 or 4 years what the heck we bought in each of these departments, so that you get a sense of, we spent $1.5 million and this is what we spent it on, you get a sense of the where we're coming from and where we're.
Well, you'd have to
where we're
compare
going.
the recommendations to the warrants.
That, Well, I mean, whatever we spend, we
Yeah.
know we've spent it. So
Right.
that could go on the list.
It's in the budget.
When it finally
Yeah.
gets, huh?
It's in the budget.
Yeah, the warrant article. to
And-
be
and-
approved.
But it doesn't show on here.
Actually,
Yes,
no,
some of
if
it does
you-
show on here,
Huh?
some of it does show on here.
But I mean, the
If you look
specific,
at-
I'm talking about the
What is it, Jerry?
specific items.
Well, look at the specific items, new ambulance, 315K.
Gotcha.
The ones with the asterisk, the ones that have been spent.
approved.
Being approved for expenditure and what the money's being spent on. That's why they're not listed in that FY20 column or going forward. So everything with an asterisk in there, you'll see that these are items that are at a stage of being purchased. Some of them, like an ambulance, is probably a year out because of ordering. But that's in the works.
It would be helpful, at least a couple of years, of what the actual expenditures were, and see which departments are getting most of the money and whether we should, others are being ignored.
You can get Sandy on that, she'll take care of it.
She will.
Say, Jim, I'd like to ask a question about just the accuracy. You got a 5-year budget here. What's it worth? Is it worth the paper it's on?
Pretty much, 100% no. Because, you know, the numbers, you know, when you start going out 3 to 5 years, the numbers there are based on experience, based on what the market is at the present time. Doesn't mean those numbers are gonna hold. You know, and it also doesn't mean that that particular item is gonna hold. That item may get substituted for something else because as you go along, 3 to 5 years, the municipal maintenance, for example, will decide that they really didn't need that pickup truck with a plow. They needed a dump truck with a plow. So they needed to go upgrade from what they were originally.
The
So-
stuff that's not purchased, say, in 2020, but was wished for, does that typically get rolled into 2021? So, and
For
so
the
forth?
most part, yeah.
So, then, as things don't get purchased, is it true that the
It
numbers
slides over.
get bigger?
Yes.
Okay, until the need falls off or the...
Exactly, I was just gonna say, you know, because in some cases, like that Onset Pier renovation engineering, I got $660,000 in for that, well, that's for 2021. Now, that number may be a valid number, it may not be, it may get done in 2021, it may not. If it gets pushed off a year, that number is probably gonna increase. Assuming that the number at the present time is accurate. The number when it was put in was accurate, or as accurate as we could get. But going forward, it's a crapshoot.
Yeah. So, when you get the numbers, our department heads coming in front of your capital committee and doing a presentation, and they
Yes.
also do the 4 years, the 5-year plan
Yeah,
for
they're
you?
the ones in any one of these, they're the ones that present it to us, and we will discuss it with them, and in some cases, the items that they present stay on, and the number's reasonably valid. They've got a sheet that they put together on where they came up with the numbers. Some places you can't get bids, 4 years out on stuff, 3 years out on stuff, because the people that you go to don't wanna waste their time doing it if they're not gonna get it. They're not gonna buy it, they'll throw a number at you.
So you're working with the priorities that are pretty much set by each department head.
We have to.
Yeah.
They have to, I mean, and then it's a discussion with each department head on why is it a priority? You know, and then is it really the priority that you're telling me today it is? And they'll come in with 12 items, and we try to get them to prioritize those 12 items, starting with number 1 down, so that we know which ones, when we get down to the point of having free cash, knowing how much money we've got to spend, we have an idea of what items out of this that we're gonna recommend for your department and for his department and for his department. We might not be able to do 1 through 4 for you, but we might be able to get one of them, and one for him, and one for him, because the money becomes the chokehold on all of it.
And Derek is a member of your committee.
Yes.
So he obviously knows of what his
Yep.
department heads have told him also.
Yes.
So there's been a lot of negotiations.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a surprise. The only surprise is how much we're gonna get for free cash. And how much of that free cash is shaken loose for capital items.
And unfortunately, the last I heard from Eric is he's being pessimistic about the delivery of that estimate. Not the amount per se, but just the timing of it, because there's 351 cities and towns asking for the same thing.
They all need to get it certified
Yeah,
by the state.
yeah.
Right.
Tom, do you have a question?
I do. So basically, then you, on this wish list, you don't have a budget to work on.
We,
Yeah,
negative,
it's, it all,
negative. It's all driven by the department heads.
no, that's not what I meant. I mean, it's all driven by what you get from free cash.
Well,
Then you
Tom,
price,
oh,
then you
oh,
price,
sorry,
so you don't have a spending budget every year.
Negative. Negative,
That's what I thought. Okay.
unfortunately.
But,
When a department comes in for a capital expenditure, do they come in with a whole analysis as to what the cost are, as what the alternatives are, what the savings are? Why do it? Do they say, okay, we're gonna modernize this, and as a result of this, our productivity is gonna go up, and so it's gonna return, we got a 20% return on this investment? Is there any intent to analyze
The
The
ROI,
returns.
the ROI isn't part of the discussion. That's never come up.
I would think that would be a
The
basic platform.
discussion comes in, I've got a pickup truck that's got 112,000 miles on it, and it's rusting out, and we use it for, plowing here, there, and wherever, and we need a replacement for it. And that's gonna be a $60,000 item
Okay, but if we don't replace it, we've got to go out and hire an outside
contract.
contractor, and that's going to cost us X, and versus doing it ourselves is Y. And that's the return you get from spending the money.
But that would be the department head making that evaluation and bringing that information forward. Because he's got to deal with
Yeah,
his budget.
he's got to be able to sell it
Yeah.
as a
He's got to make a
reasonable use
comparison,
of.
because he's either got an expense or a capital outlay.
Using that pickup truck for an example, gets approved, does that truck the old one get traded in, or does he stockpile old vehicles to use on here and there? Well, don't laugh, that's, I understand some of the vehicles you can get away with, and maybe the public health can use it, or somebody else can, but
Yeah, we're trying to get out of that stockpiling crap, because usually that's all that gets stockpiled, is junk.
yeah, then
And
they cannibalize them or whatever.
That's why, if you'll look at the building department with the vehicles that they have, there's the pickup trucks. That always used to be the Ford Fairlanes. They got shuffled from the police department down there, and then by the time maintenance got through putting those things in a roadworthy condition for them to use, it cost more than buying a new pickup truck over a 3-year period. It was senseless. So we've gotten away from that on that score, and we're trying to stay away from that as much as is practical. Some vehicles that
Right.
get pulled out of service will get warehoused, and yes, because there may be parts enough available off of it to make it worthwhile to hold them until you strip them. Because they don't have the bodies to just go in there and, tear one apart and take off what they want and then get rid of it. But we're trying not to become a graveyard for used vehicles by a long shot.
We did that in another community I was involved in, and we found it wasn't cost effective over the long term.
It's not.
Initially, a sale, when it was sold, sounds great, you just downgrade it. You got one of the old cruisers, Board of Health needs it for just do their inspections and the like, so they downgrade it. But by the time they were through fixing it up, so it could be used,
Exactly.
and then over a period of time, the cost of keeping it in that condition, it just was not cost effective anymore. And now with the leasing, as many of the vehicles we have now, we lease them.
Yeah.
So at the end of the 3-year lease, I think with the cruisers, it costs us $1 or $2 to buy them, and they'll last us another year or two perhaps, and we just rotate them over.
Yeah,
But
at
it
least-
isn't a immediate impact on the budget.
And at least with those, when you've got the lease situation like that, you can make the decision on whether this vehicle is worth
Mhm.
buying and continuing on with, or whether you just wanna kick it to the curb and get something else.
Right. We found that to be very cost effective over time.
Yeah.
Any other questions? No, there being none, thank you much. Oh, and welcome back to our next item. Water pollution control. We had the privilege of getting a outstanding tour of what happens to our poop. And very thorough too, it was very thorough July. As a result of the tour, I'm not sure, but if there are any questions we might have here. It's not necessarily a presentation, because I think the tour took care of that, but for those of us who were not on the tour, by all means, with the chairman of the water commissioners and the director of the water pollution control. Anything changed between then and now, by the way?
The more stuff-
You always said everything changes, I mean, anything.
Well, there
More
are,
stuff
I mean,
came in.
we could talk about changes, we haven't clarified that's in trouble, I mean, there's changes every day, it's very fluid. And things that run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, any given time. But on this particular issue, nothing's changed. Although, I stand corrected, the flow's dropping off, so that's changed. So we're less in a panic mode, there's nothing going on the ground, which is exciting for us. Clarifiers are starting to settle down. We're still carrying 7-foot blankets in a 10-foot tank. Normally we carry 2 to 3. So we're watching that come down. We're still concerned about it, but we feel a bit better. Overtime's cut down considerable. We're doing, some people are doing 60 hours a week. We're down probably around 40, between 40 and 50. So that's exciting. So as the flow starts to drop, it seems to get a little bit better. Odor calls are down. I don't think we got any this week from a normal 10 a day throughout the heat of the summer, and all the water we're carrying and the overflows and all that good stuff. And so I'm excited about that. The ground's drying out. Now we can rake up the sludge that's everywhere. We can clear all the lawns, and we can get the dirt back in and make it look presentable once again. So that's exciting. So we are making progress, and it is going in the right direction. So we're excited about that. But the problem hasn't gone away. Today we're looking at the rain. It's approximately 110,000 gallons per inch. They're talking about up to 3 inches today. They said sometimes 5. I don't know what Wareham's going to get, but for every inch we know we're going to get 100,000 gallons. Some pumps are going to go crazy, so we're concerned about that. We're carrying empty basins, so I've got actually we're carrying 2 empty basins right now because we're able to empty daily, so we can carry 2 million gallons. So let's say if we get the 5 inches, that's 500,000 gallons, so I've got a basin for it. It'll create some odors, but again, I don't have to throw it on the ground, and so that's pretty exciting in itself. So there's some good things. We are making progress. Again, it's drying. It is definitely drying out, and that's exciting. We had, as you are probably all aware, we had a really wet spring and summer, and it was crazy. It was horrendous. And so, yeah, so we are making progress. But the problem is still there. Rain brings it back instantaneously. So this project is pretty exciting. It's something that, I got to be frank, I'd like to put the $10 million someplace else, but this becomes a highest priority, so that's why it's in front of the board.
Care to add anything to that, Jim?
Who's the expert?
I was looking through some of the studies, and like the capital improvement dates back to 2015.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm certain you must be upgrading this. Is there anything in the works for another evaluation by an outside source or whatever?
For what?
Like, you had mentioned a couple other studies that were coming up.
We're doing a lot of studies through coastal zone management, resiliency and all that good stuff, and we've got 2 more coming up, which we're pretty excited about. We are doing another comprehensive wastewater management plan. That study's in the works now. We'll complete that soon. We've got some great ideas, but it's not finalized. Yeah, we're looking at all kinds of things, and upgrades, generally speaking, tied into the outfall relocation, and then general upgrades that we need to do. Another thing that's fluid is the requirements change. When we built the plant, if you look at the plant, I think I had said in the tour, we have no redundancy. When you look at a plant, you see every tank full, you got a problem, all right? Because it doesn't allow for any maintenance, it doesn't allow for any problems. you're running by the seat of your pants constantly. And I know it's all economics, and I hear everybody talking about economics, and it's about what's available, and sometimes we, don't find the money and we spite ourselves, but redundancy. So the law now says you will carry redundancy. So it becomes a point where we have no option, and we have to factor redundancy. The sand filter should have never been 3 alone, that one set of 3, never. It just should have happened. In talking to some people involved in that committee, it became economics, and you had to cut. Okay, so what do you cut? And so we decided to cut the redundancy on the sand filters. We need to put them in. Matter of fact, if you were to build a plant today, you couldn't build it without putting them in. So those kind of things we're looking at the new laws and regulations, and try to adjust to them, specifically if they affect us in our daily operations. And when they do, we bring it to the top of the list. So that stuff is very fluid, all the time, constantly. We're also looking for some money on this project itself. CZN may give us some money for design, and we have $1 million outlay for design. They may give us up to $750,000 of that money. We've got the grant in right now, so that's exciting. That helps out with that too. So we're always looking for grants. We're always begging and borrowing. And like I said, everybody laughs. I was thinking to put toilets everywhere and just say drop $1 because it becomes that critical.
Well, they just filed for the,
SRF funding, that's a 276-page document, that's in. And I don't know if anybody has a summary, but we have the ability to borrow this money at 0%. And that's pretty exciting. Anytime you can borrow money at 0%, it's really exciting. So
Doesn't happen that often.
No, it does not. And, I mean, there's criteria, but in this particular grant, we meet the criteria, so we have to do nothing extra. So, I mean, it's borrowing around. So we're pretty excited about that. And that's just the evaluation of what you've done, but in the back, it talks about some of the criteria for the 0% fund. I thought about 9. Apologize, I thought about 9.
Tell me get it first, tell me you're better at it than me.
Tell him slow, he's got 3 hours.
3 minutes, one?
Dominic, you're always excited.
I'd be 1,000 words a minute.
So, I mean, that's exciting, and we believe, given the fact, so the DEP, in the report, you'll see, the DEP gave us permission for the wet weather protocol that we have. But the DEP and EPA at odds. The EPA did not grant us permission. So we're hoping that we can resolve this before the EPA gets involved. We had a bunch of EPA from the central region, the southern region up, and they really didn't know what they were looking at. They actually came because in the back of the plant we have an experiment going on through the Wood Soil Institution at the Graphics Society there, and we're trying to take wood chips and get nitrogen down to 0. So that's a funded project through DPNEP, Joe Coster and Dr. Furman, and so they really came for that. And so I was very careful when they wanted to walk to the other side of the building, and that I would direct them to this side of the building so they wouldn't ask questions about all this standing water everywhere. So if they did,
Don't hurt them.
absolutely. Excuse me, but we don't, because I have to file reports, and it also causes violation of our bacteria, which is 38 colonies per 100 mils, and we've been 48 lately, and all that flow affects our ability to disinfect through our UV system. So those violations are out there. I've got a notice from the EPA. I addressed it, we had them repaired, we readjusted the back end so we could throw more water through and keep the levels where they need to be so the UVs can be effective. So we're answering the questions and we're making the corrections as we go along. So hopefully that's as far as it goes. And so because of that conflict in EPA and DEP, I hate to be in the middle of it. So our goal is to rectify this problem, because the EPA will get a copy of this for sure. And so we're hoping that we're well underway, and we can say to them when they finally wake up and say, wow, what's going on? That, no, we've got a solution, we're moving forward. So those are the kind of things that we can do.
Environmental impact.
How are you doing with
That's why
your
we need
sump
the 1 to 0.
pump
Because
issues?
the water
How's yours? You still got yours?
It's not all
We just had that discussion at the last meeting. And,
That's an issue of
Because of our
integrity.
environmental impact.
It's integrity. We've got plans in place. We've got this terrific rain, we're gonna go out, we're gonna camera, we'll find them. We can have them removed. The question becomes, is once they're removed,
Maintain it, yeah.
do they get reconnected? Because I have no way of knowing that. So it becomes integrity. So knowing the problems it causes, the cost, the permit violations, I'm hoping people realize that they need to do the right thing. And also, if you don't give people alternatives, then it's not gonna happen. I mean, I may slap you, fine you, and you disconnect temporarily, but when you weigh it out, you're talking about return on investment, you spend all this money in your basement or your living area, and a sump pump keeps it that way, and I'm saying, here it is, get rid of it, and you say, okay, and you make me happy, I leave, and sign off, and you're happy, and you look at this investment, you say, you know what, that sump pump's gotta go back on. And I can't put it in my yard because it's not gonna work. So, yeah, we're gonna do all we can to get rid of them, but keeping them gone, that's a question of integrity. So we'll keep doing that. I can't go to every house every single day, and that creates some issues of me knocking on your door and say, I gotta get in your basement. And you say to me, you gotta go where? And I say, no, I gotta go in your basement. And you
So
say,
if we can eliminate half of them,
yeah,
we're ahead
well,
of the
that's
game.
huge.
It'll make a big difference.
And I think there are enough people out there with integrity that would say, you know what, I wish I had realized, I will do the right thing. I still believe in humanity, and I know it doesn't, but I believe in humanity. I think there's enough people that would do that because it's the right thing to do. But overall, there's gonna be other half that are gonna say, yeah, okay, whatever. And that's the way, that's nature of the beast. So when we talk about that tank, that 2.2 million gallons to hold, well, we have to be prepared for the people that aren't gonna comply. I mean, in the real world, or the, the Pollyanna, yeah, they're gonna comply, but then if they don't, what do? That's why the tank's critical, because those that don't comply have a place to put it. So I know every wet season I can handle it. And if they do comply, then that's great, that's terrific. But if they don't, then I'm in trouble. And if the rainstorms keep getting, each year more intense as they're along, then I have the room for it. So it's nice to say that everybody's gonna comply and I'm gonna be good, but the reality is, no, I have to prepare for the reality of getting all that flow.
It's hard to make them understand that the cycle of the water that they pump out, it's gonna take a while before it gets back to that sump pump again.
Absolutely.
And by that time, everything's drying out.
I agree, I couldn't agree more.
If you could just get rid of those that are, don't have finished basements, but still wanna pump that water out.
Absolutely. And people have utilities. I've seen, back in the day, furnaces on the floor, whatever, so you take a furnace out, that's pretty expensive. I think most people now in the wet area, they raise them up, and so people are getting more educated on that. But the ones that don't, you're gonna weigh it out, take out my furnace, take out this, yeah, that's, the sump pump's gonna lose every time. It's gonna run like crazy, and they're not gonna put it in the yard. You talk about mosquitoes, right? So water mosquitoes, we say, well, wait a minute, it's AAA, I'm not putting it in my, so there's all kinds of reasons. People can justify why I'm not throwing it in my yard. I don't want a wet yard. The sewer, it's gone. It's out of, and so that becomes the easiest, the most viable, and the solution. And so that's why it goes away, out of sight, out of mind, gone.
And if they
So
put it in dry
we gotta keep
wells,
working
that
on
would
it.
take care of some of the problems.
Absolutely. There's dry wells, there's systems, there's a lot of systems.
A lot of stuff that can be done that doesn't become a huge cost, and would take and reduce the cost that we have at the plant, because all that water that comes in has to be treated, even though there's nothing
Nothing wrong with it.
wrong with it, and shouldn't be there in the first place, but just treating it at the same cost per gallon as you're treating everything else.
Yes, and it also, one of the biggest things too is the SSOs, because a pipe is designed for specific capacity based upon the flow of that region or that catchment area. You add sump pumps to it, it takes that capacity totally away. So you kind of put your sewer in there, so now you have surcharges everywhere, and that's crazy. So that's the side that people don't even look at, and they don't understand, so we're trying to get the word out there, and I think if we continue to educate, there's a degree of people that I don't care what you do. That's why you put locks on houses, you can't stop a thief, but the honest man will get the message. And so there's a degree, percent of people that just are gonna ignore us, but I wanna get that percent that can really help us and that they'll do the right thing, and we can alleviate some of this problem. We'll just keep working at it.
Those people have to realize, when they're running their sump pumps, it's increasing the cost for everybody in town who uses that sewer.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, it creates a problem for us too, additionally, because we're under a restriction by the state as to how much we can expel into the Agawam River. That's one of the reasons we're looking at a line going down the canal for increased expulsion capacity. That's still a football as far as where to go and how to go, cost and who's involved and all the rest of that. But
Well, this is critical for the expansion and long-term viability of the town.
absolutely.
Absolutely. We're taking away capacity. It gets to the point where somebody's gonna say one day the sewer commission, we can't take any more till we rectify a problem, because I can add the gallons, but during a wet event, those gallons get displaced by stormwater, and then I'm in serious trouble. So you gotta really think about what you're doing, you know, as much as you wanna keep expanding, because you have, by theory, you have all the capacity. But with wet weather, takes all that capacity away, so we know that each spring, and if that, you know, continues from spring in this year into the summer, then we're really in trouble. You know, and if it's the spring starts early in the winter, as it did in 2015, in January start taking tons of water, then we're really in trouble. So that's a factor that, you know, I look at I&I and I'm trying to get, I talk to EPA and engineering, when we do I&I factors for when we do projects, we do the inches of the pipe and the miles of the pipe we're putting in. No one factors in sump pumps, because in their mind, sump pumps are illegal. So why would I factor something that's illegal? And so I'm trying to get the reality and say, well, you know, I know they're illegal, but factor them in because that's a greater capacity, so we may be able to grab it in the beginning and put the capacity in the ground while it's least expensive to put the pipe in, and maybe put the capacity, especially gravity, because force mains becomes critical on size, but gravity doesn't, you know, as far as it flowing through it. So it may be the place to do it.
You want to touch on what we're trying to get done with the state on groundwater discharge?
As far as stormwaters,
Yeah.
the state, we're talking to the state about tapping into the stormwater. So the town has, as you all know, MS4 issues, and it's something that's been around for years. We've kind of kicked it around. But it's a reality, and there's going to be treatment of stormwater. That's just the bottom line. When we do it, I don't know. How much it's going to cost, I don't know. How we're going to do it, I don't know. But it's going to happen. So one of the solutions the state had, I met with the state DEP, is that, and other communities are doing it, is they put it to the stormwater. And so we have to treat anyways, so you have a central location to go to treat the water, so it gives you a viable alternative to put your stormwater, your sump pump in there, because there's an existing system. The grant we're looking at is to map that system and take that correlation to our treatment, where our sewers are, and see how easy it would to make that transition, and then find a place to treat it. So it would work, and to me, it behooves everybody, because if we're working with it, and the town's working with it, because they have to do MS4, and we can tap into that, so there's a dual funding, and I can get grants, they can get grants. It may be a better project for the entire community, so I'm looking at that also. Because again, it's just, the more alternatives we can put out there for folks with sump pumps, the more likely we'll get compliance. So our concept and our goal is to look at all the things that we can do. I know that the misnomer and the mis-ideas is that you can't do it. People keep telling me, you can't do it. I have engineers telling me you can't do it. Well, you can, and the DEP is behind it. They're the ones funding the grants.
Are you talking about putting a parallel system in?
Absolutely. So what we're talking about is already a system. I'm talking about finding a way to get you to that system. So maybe put a parallel pipe in that you tie into, and I tie that into the system. And then, of course, treatment is something that the town has to do anyways. So tie into that and treat it and that type of thing. So we're looking at that. So the grant money will give us the viability of that, and then we can look costs and whole 9 yards and work collaboration and see what we can do to get the problem solved.
What is the last section you've sewered?
Oh goodness, it would be Cremisa, I think. Cremisa, Oakdale Cremisa, I think is the last sewer.
Yeah, how long ago was it?
I don't know, 2012, 2013, I don't know.
Yeah.
2012, I think, went online, something like that.
So everything else is older than?
Yeah.
Yes.
And the size of the pipes that were designed for any particular area, because on your map it was all pods as you supply
The
sewerage
chillers.
to. Excuse me. It's built for 30, 40 years ago. 2-bedroom homes, 1 bath.
Some work.
Now 4-bedroom homes, 2.5
Absolutely.
baths
You're
in the
100%.
same. So you're running
Absolutely. So we've got
forward
problems
capacity.
there. That's a problem that we don't even talk about, because when we store an area, we do the flow. We base the flow on the existing, and that's how engineers do it. So that 2-bedroom cottage now becomes a 4-bedroom cottage with an in-law apartment and this and that, and so that flow goes out of sight. We're not prepared for that, we're not. And so I drive on areas and I say, oh my goodness, to me that's flow, and I'm not prepared for that flow. And one of the things that the state talked about, the 0% financing when you did sewer years ago, was that you would only build to what you had. So if we said, we put a policy in place that says if it's a 3-bedroom home, well, you can put a 3-bedroom home, and then the state said if you did that, because now you can control the growth that we're not accounting for in sewer, they'd give us 0% across the board. I say to myself, if we had done that in all these years, my God, we could save in our debt. But again, it's a political thing, and people say, well, no, if I get sued, I wanna put my 5-bedroom home, and then I hear the other side, people say, well, I don't wanna pay the betterment. Oh my gosh, if you can go from a 2-bedroom to 5-bedroom, that betterment is a drop in the bucket. And I say, what are you whining about? You are bettering your property, the ability to better your property, because I can't stop you from putting a 10-bedroom house. I have no ability to stop you, or putting in-laws and the whole 9 yards, and that flow comes to the treatment plant, and the existing conditions I have to adjust to with that extra flow. So,
Now, that leads us to the capacity of the plant.
absolutely, back to the capacity.
Now, going in now to that main going down by Mass Maritime. Who's taking the lead on that project?
Buzzards Bay Coalition has taken the lead in the project, and the reason is because they're getting the money. So that's all being funded by the EPA grants. I think up to this point, we could probably get about $800,000. We can't fund that kind of money for these research. And right now, especially the bentonite studies and the water studies we've been doing for the last 2 years, we're wrapping up this year, very expensive to do, very expensive. And all the testing was holding, the modeling, we had to model the Cape Cod Canal, where every drop went, take it to the, to Sandwich, take it to, to Onset, take it into Bourne, all that modeling, that we couldn't do that. And so all that's money. And so because Buzzards Bay was able to get these grants, they take the lead in this project, and they're working with the agencies, which right now is CZM, because we didn't know who in the beginning. We're working under the Ocean Sanctuary Act. It's the first time it's ever been used, so nobody knows who's in charge of it. And there's no platform for it, there's no template for it. And so we finally figured out it's coastal zone management. So now they can work with coastal zone closely and get this done. So Buzzards Bay Coalition is taking the lead.
One of the things that's happened, that you're not letting them know on, is with the studies that have been done so far, they've determined that the canal can take like 10 million gallons per day.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And the nitrogen level is.
With zero impact.
With zero impact.
Zero impact.
And we've done through the meetings with the other towns, and we've come up with a number of about 3.65. Is that right?
Right now, 3.65.
Which is what would be our max that we would.
Does that include South Plymouth?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, South Plymouth, Marion, Mass Maritime, Bourne, and Wareham.
Mattapoisett?
No,
No, we haven't gone that far.
no.
How aggressive are they being
Who?
The Buzzards Bay Coalition?
in implementing this process?
Very,
Because
very
you don't have any
aggressive.
place to
They are
put that pipe.
aggressive.
No,
unless
very
you put it
aggressive.
down
I mean,
Cranberry
that's
Highway.
sincerely.
Well,
It's-
that's what we're discussing right now. We're trying to get it down Cranberry Highway, see if we can, what the situation would be, and that's not negated at the moment, but it's not, they're not running out there with open arms and embracing us and giving us kisses.
It seems to be the only viable alternative
Well,
we
it's the
have.
only one that's gonna be left, because we're not gonna be able to go down the rail bed.
Hmm.
All right, let me rephrase that. We can go down the rail bed, but that's only if you win the $500 million lottery to be able to fund it, because of the requirements that DOT has put in on us.
Well, if they put another line down there, that vibration on it, it's gonna wreak havoc with the pipe.
Yeah, so that's pretty much, dead in the water. The ideal way at the moment would be to go right down Cranberry Highway, because they're gonna tear the damn thing up anyhow. And that would take us down halfway there,
Absolutely, take us down
and
past that.
then we'd have to, maneuver from there down the rest of the way down Cranberry Highway, and at some point they're gonna be doing that, but we probably need to do something well before that.
I heard there's a potential of, at the very least, putting a pipe in, but just put one in and let's run it, just, they have one down the Cranberry Highway. We don't really connect it to it at all, but they have the pipe already.
And to your point, if we don't do it, and then they have the 5-year moratorium, then you can't touch the road, so
Yeah,
that's
that's-
10 years out.
that's the problem.
So we have to get it in, and they're doing that project in stages, so we want to do it in stages. We had missed the deadline for the bids, because, so if Water Arts is putting they're replacing their main, and that, because they were part of that bid process. We weren't. So we're trying to reopen it, and because the state is very adamant about, well, this is what we did, this is the policy, this is the way it's going to be, we're trying to change that concept. We're trying to get some help to convince them that this is a great project. It affects multi-communities. It's a regional project. It has to be done. And then the environmental side, I'm going to get rid of 2 outfalls. You're gonna make the bay a whole lot better. I couldn't even begin to tell you the tonnage of nitrogen you remove from the bay, I mean, the numbers, and then the economics of it. It allows the community to continue to grow and all the communities. So we're gonna use that leverage to try to get them, and so now it's just a series of meetings and trying to get the right
Yeah,
people.
the leverage comes into being a regional operation rather than a single town operation. So that gives you some,
Well, the vulnerability, I think, is if we drag our feet or something happens and we have to wait for the 5 years, you have to restart all the studies
yeah,
again.
well, we're trying not to drag our heels on any of this.
Mhm.
We've been, just going, I mean, we've been doing this now for what, 4 years,
That's
5
well,
years?
we started earnestly in 2012.
Yeah,
The alternative to all this is the groundwater discharge, and no environmentalist wants to hear it, but I would go to the watershed, the onset, the Wareham wells, and I'd go on that land I'd dump. That creates some problems too, but it's very doable. So if for some reason we couldn't get down the canal at all, I would have to seek an alternative
Right.
because it's critical. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. We have storms that we're taking 1.3 MGD, our limit is 1.56. 80% of 1.56 triggers an upgrade. So we keep playing with that 1.3, the state's gonna say, you will upgrade. EPA will say, you will upgrade. And then we have to find some places, no alternatives, we just gotta go. So we're trying to get ahead of that, and so if we can be proactive, and as long as you're proactive, you can head off the regulators, because we are trying to do something. So if the canal fails, and there's no one I've talked to that says the canal's a bad idea, it's just getting there. It's getting there. And then the Corps of Engineers has got their own sets, because I gotta go into some waterways, and they call that Cohasset Bay area a navigable water, which is a whole set of regulations to get under that. We had Congressman Keating's office meet with the Corps the last time, backed them down, we were able to move on. We engaged them again to go back at the Corps, because it's a federal, to get us to be able to directional drill under that, because they're taking us all the way into Buzzards Bay, Puritan Road, and back down around, because of that little part over here that they call navigable, which starts with the bridges, you get a very small boat, so it's kind of conflict. Anything this side of the Mass Maritime, I don't know how navigable, to me, I'm not the Corps of Engineers. So we're trying, because it's less expensive for us to go this way, from the bridge, the 628 Narrows Bridge, right on and come up in Mass Maritime. So that alternative is being seeked right now. We've engaged them, and we're going to have them go talk to the state, federal, and see what they can do for us. And they were very successful last time around. So those are the kind of things that we have to do, and the pressure we have to put. It's just like anything else, a lot of networking. You just
it's a typical who's on first.
It's just the way it is.
But that discharge pipe may eventually take discharge from MS4 from your,
Oh, yeah.
There's potential there, absolutely. There's so much potential.
make sure it's big enough.
It's so,
Well,
and if,
As far as I'm concerned,
that's
you
a
would
really
make
good
that,
point.
you would make that for the 10 million gallons. Even though we're not anywhere close to doing that, 50 years down the street, who the hell knows what we're gonna have? And who else will be wanting to come in online with it?
Right.
And when you mentioned Mattapoisett, at this point in time, that's not a discussion. I mean, in this Carver, that's not a discussion. However, they may well be discussions as well as other places. I mean, to run a pipe over to here in town is one thing, to build a whole new treatment plant is another.
Process.
Well, not a poison ties, part of it ties into Marion, so it's
Yeah.
already there to a
Yeah,
degree.
exactly.
A very small piece, and they
Right.
could expand that.
So, I mean, it's,
Guy, I just read this real quick.
Throughout the town, which is,
Is this gonna bring any red flags from the state? The reason why they're giving you this money at 0% is because of danger to the EPA, I mean, to the environment, that's why.
We're violating permit,
Yeah, that's why this.
we're already there.
That's why you're getting this money. The 0% is because we're in danger of violating all kinds of waterways. I mean, that's what this says.
What it's saying is that we discharge to the Agawam River, so there's two things that are critical. I'm discharging to the ground, there's no lining, so that means that water is gonna make it to the Agawam River, no bacteria treatment. It's been through secondary, but it's the last five, the tertiary we gotta get rid of, so we're not doing that. So that's a dangerous thing. We're also, our UVs, because of the flow, they're inoperable. So we're violating. I've got reported violations for bacteria. So that becomes an environmental quagmire. So, yes, so all the
My question
triggers-
is, by us applying for this and being qualified for it, is that gonna draw any attention to us from the state that we already don't have?
No, it's already there. The state is,
So the state's already red flagged, we're already bad,
Absolutely.
that's why they're offering us the money 0%. Thank you.
that's one of the triggers we're using because the state's well aware. They had to approve, so the bottom line is when the sand filter's plugged, I can't shut flow off.
No, I understand.
And so it has to go somewhere, and that place is the ground. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. What we try to eliminate is that when the two basins are full up front, that's raw sewer. So we build berms. I've got berms around the plant, so if that blows over, I can contain it.
Contain it.
I cut off all drainage to the river, so I can contain it, because in 215, we put sandbags around all those, we had to put sandbags to stop it from reaching into the river. So if that part goes in the river, then all bets are off. Not only the EPA, the state, the CZM, there's every agency will be down our throat. So by discharge at the back end, we have secondary treatment. So it's a better product, not perfect, but it's a better product. So the state said, you're blowing it out anyways, so here, take it and pump it to that low area and do your thing. So that's part of our emergency wet weather high flow plan. We're doing that. So the state's well aware, because we needed their permission to
So
do it.
that's why they're offering us the money.
They're saying yes, because they know and they want it
We
resolved
don't have
as
that-
much as we
We
do.
don't have a 0% guarantee at the moment.
Well, did you
We're
read,
hoping for
that's what
We
this,
do.
that's what
With-
this,
under that
we do, that's what
criteria-
this says.
Under that criteria, we do.
That's what it
And
says,
that's why
right?
If they approve it.
That's right. If SRF funds, if the state approves this,
If they
with the SRF funding, then we get that funding with 0%. Plus debt forgiveness, only because of the category of the town and the economic
how bad
status.
we are.
There's a debt forgiveness. So, I mean, it makes sense to apply. Now, there's no guarantee, because we're not the only community.
No, I understand
Situat's in
that.
major trouble. There's a lot of communities in trouble that
Right.
are doing the same thing we're doing. This year, many communities threw it to the ground because none of us prepared for that flow. None of us prepared for that, none of us. It wasn't part of the design criteria. And now when you design a plan, you have to design the criteria to 2050, because they take it and they keep exaggerating the wet weather, the increase of the ocean, they exaggerate it, and that's the number you'll design to, because it gives you all those years of adjusting as it definitely comes.
I get
So we don't have that now. We're
Thank you.
flying.
Thank you.
Jim, we went through a lot of issues, all of which take money,
Mhm.
and the only source you have is rates. What are you doing about that?
Well, we are gonna have to adjust rates at a point. For the particular project that you're looking at, it's in front of you right at the moment, there'd be no change in the rates at all. We'll be able to handle
Need to
that.
change the system,
Pardon me?
Oh,
the system.
I know,
Oh,
we're
yeah,
trying.
that's
There's
what
no way.
we've been working on that, to
There's
try
no
to get
way.
a change in the damn system. And
There's no way. We don't
it's
have
amazing
lawyers.
how difficult that has been, because that's been one
Most
of
all
the
the
things.
towns, I mean, we're only like the third town left that uses that in all of Massachusetts.
And I don't know how
The
many
only
towns have
trouble
districts.
is, the
How
only
many towns
problem
have
is you
districts?
can't do it on water,
Are they?
because we
So
don't have
how-
the water.
Then we need to
rates.
know how they cooperate, because we don't get
No.
cooperation.
Just need that
I mean,
information.
it's like the water people do, they have a minimum, and then over usage.
Because I don't know how
That's
they-
right.
we gotta
That's
find
what
out
I'm
how
saying
they-
to you.
why- how
You
they-
need the usage.
You need the usage.
And I said that Wareham won't give us
And
that.
you know, and they will work with you.
Yes.
That's
That's not what I heard.
Well, and you're talking to, I don't know who you're talking to, but
Go to the meeting, I mean, they didn't say no.
they said no to us before. Now, unless they've changed, they may have changed their position.
So how many years ago was that?
2 years ago, no, 2 years ago, maybe, and some less than that. They did say that if we gave them $1 million, they would consider it. Yes, they did. They said, you give us $1
They did say it would
million,
take money,
and you
correct.
buy our meters, yes, we would consider it.
That's
what they said.
about it.
Lots
They
of
did
service.
say it was a workable system, but what I'm saying is that, you know, there are other systems. I know it would take a long time to, you know, try to figure it out, okay? But there are other towns in Massachusetts that have done it. You know, I mean, what they do is
It's easy to do.
What they do is they have, you know what you need to spend. So they have a minimum with the usage over, but that takes water numbers, I understand that.
And there's very
They also
long
have flow
messages.
meters, they also have outgoing flow meters, am I correct?
They do, but
They do.
they're made for pipes, and you gotta put like a partial flume in there.
I
It's
understand that.
costly, not as accurate as you like it to be, and so when it comes to billing off meters, they've gotta be calibratable, and they've gotta be very accurate, so this.
Same as a water meter though.
That's
Excuse me,
internal, that's
We're talking
interior to the
about
pipe.
a system
It's a
that we
whole
don't
different-
own.
Whole different.
And how they do it or how they keep their track of it is all irrelevant. All we have to know is how much does that building use?
that's right.
And there's a percentage formula that determines what the sewerage is out of that building.
Correct.
And that's
Like
easy
like I
done.
said, they
But they
make.
don't do that.
But, you know what, all it would take, if you wanted to know how much water each home uses, you know, everyone gets a water bill.
So I would have to have you send me your water bill.
And you don't think people wouldn't do that?
And I would have you come down and help me sort that out, put it together, and bill it, because that's many, many man
I
hours.
understand.
So-
No, I know it's not
We're
an
looking at
easy,
this
it's not an
logistics.
I know it's not an easy
No,
process.
it isn't.
I-
And
I
even
know-
if we-
I know you're up against it on
We're
it,
trying.
but I'm just saying that I believe that
Keep
the
trying.
billing system that we have with, you know, so many, it just
We
doesn't
don't
make
pay
a lot of sense.
Let me be
You get an old guy in a house who's paying the same amount of money as someone with 10 people living in that house.
Exactly.
It's hard.
It's fine, and let me be clear, it doesn't mean bills are gonna go down.
You're preaching
It
to
may,
the choir.
because
on
you
that.
still need a base.
Yeah, that's
Let's
what I
say we're
said, you
charging
still need a
$600 right
basis,
now.
you gotta pay
That
the
number may
bills.
never go down. Because I think the
No, I know.
consumption is that it should go down to 100, it'll never go down,
I-
because that's your base.
I never said that it should go
Go
down,
down.
but I do believe a lot of people are getting away with more than others.
Absolutely,
Oh,
So
absolutely.
that's why the base,
That's a
so,
fact.
so you say it's what, 650,
Preaching to the choir.
600 and some dollars per house?
$626.
Whatever it is, okay. So you put a base at 600 and you charge more per person or bedroom or something to do with that. That would level the playing field.
Because
That
the
old guy would
variable-
pay
that's right.
$600 and that family of 5
Would
would
pay more.
obviously
The
pay more.
variable
And
would be
now,
less.
that wouldn't be that hard to implement.
We
It
can't.
wouldn't, but if I don't have the water use year in and year out.
Don't
then
use
it's a
water
problem.
usage.
You
Do
have
it
to-
by size of the home.
No,
Ooh, no,
Yeah.
pretend, no, so you're saying I have a 1 bedroom, a 2 bedroom, a 3 bedroom? It doesn't talk about flow, because I could have a 1 bedroom, put 15 bunk beds in it, and tell me it happens,
No, I-
and there's a flow. So it, water is the ultimate, because water in, and more people, more water use, I get that.
Yeah.
That's the most, and if we can get there, we'd love to. And the commissioner's been hammering, because we're trying to get there. Without that, to adjust the rates, we have to have an arbitrary figure. We have to, again, and that's gonna be unfair to some, but that's life. And we can go that route.
But you
because
still have,
someone's gonna
like you
wind
said,
up-
you still need that minimum to pay your bills.
We have to.
So you come up with that number and that's the level playing field.
And that's just what we call the fixed. We still have to play with the variable, because that's all over the place. And so that's what we get, in theory, with the flow, that's what we get that variable.
Basically, that's what the water department's doing. I mean, Onset does, Onset pays so much for so many cubic feet,
They
we
own the
pay
system.
over.
They own the
but we
system.
don't have that information, Dominic.
No, I understand that,
That's, well,
but
that's, I mean, that's the whole issue.
That's
Well, you
Our
can
ends
put-
can't even,
That's
you
what
put,
the
you put outgoing flow meters, there's things we can do. I'm not saying they're easy, they're not an easy solution, but.
I'm not saying it is. And the
Okay,
cost,
no.
to just get one set of numbers, a couple of years ago, was 18 grand. So I don't know, it's the money to do the meters, and then the annual fee, I don't know what that's going to be, because there's an annual fee for that. So I have to look at that too, because that has to go back into my costs. And no matter what we did, what we do, I mean that, we still have to talk about rates, because I look at, every year, taxes go up 2.5%. I don't know why. Why don't we leave taxes the way they are? But they go up, and I believe it's because our costs go up.
Absolutely.
Let me tell you something.
Your costs go up
every year
also.
to the plant.
I understand.
And when I hear, I'm told you can't raise the rates, it's political, I'm saying, okay, so you're telling me my costs don't go up? My costs go up every single year. Heck, collective bargaining goes up 1 to 3% every year. I've got to fund that, so rates should be a standard increase no matter what. And I think that's the basis, that my theory, but that's just my idea. And I'll let the sewer commissioners take care of that and the town take care of that. But our costs go up every single year. And that's why you have an issue with infrastructure, because there's no money to fix things, because we don't have the funds. We just don't have the funds. And we need to get those funds, because it's critical.
okay.
Not to you and I, we're to the age where it's not gonna matter, but those come behind us, it's gonna really matter to them.
Okay, let's move on here. I want to thank you very much,
Thank you,
the two of you, very good.
I appreciate it.
Added a lot to the discussion we had.
And thanks for
during the
coming
tour.
out to the plant, it means a lot, because when you see it, you understand it, and you can make better decisions, and I really commend you and thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Did he give you refreshments out there too?
I didn't have any
He never
refreshments.
took us down the end of the pipe, because I know he has it.
There's some good water down there.
He has a
You
glass
know, I
sitting on
can
top
prove
of
it.
that pipe.
There's some good water down there, you're right, next time.
Drinkable, it's drinkable. Yeah,
Next time.
I can picture who would have taken a drink. No one, except maybe you.
You're first.
It's just a lot of turbidity, and the bacteria's clean, the water's clean, it's just a lot of turbidity, it's hard, really hard water, it's getting it down, you'll feel it. But it's-
I'm sorry, Guy, I just don't think you're that good of a salesman.
If I put one, we're looking at reverse osmosis.
Have any of the
bottle it
water
in soap.
commissioners tasted that water?
No.
We're gonna start running it through their pipes and see what happens. See if maybe they'll give us the numbers.
Thank
Thanks
you
again.
again, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Good to see you
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Water pollution control is the most important asset this town has. If it screws up, you get the biggest problem.
worried about that.
It's fine, nobody's gonna complain, but it's something that's a magnet.
We already have.
We don't have
Pretty much
beaches
a
if we
black
don't have
eye.
sewage.
But the other towns around here don't have anything to compare with.
No.
I mean, the Buzzards Bay, Falmouth is in deep trouble because of their water.
He's
I
the
mean,
chairman
we've got it,
of
and it runs, and it doesn't give us a lot of black eyes, so this is where it's, a lot of focus should go on this thing.
It is well run, but it's on the edge.
Yeah, no, I know it's
Flows
on
too.
edge.
That's the trouble, the flow is too high right now.
Well, if we get that, the outfall pipe on,
They're a public
you
entity.
can operate at capacity,
They're not
greater
part of the
capacity.
town.
But unfortunately, we don't have that. Okay, the next item on our agenda is, we're dealing with waste all the time. Regional Refuse District, update. Hi, Jim.
What's up? I'm Jim Manise.
Joe
Joe Benedict, he's on the
No?
committee also.
I don't think we can all understand what you actually do as we related to the collection and with CMAS and all.
Collection.
So if you, we, through the,
Let's do it, let me start out this.
okay, you start.
The three towns collective fee, right? We set it at 40, Carver gets it 50, and Marion charges $10 for the stickers.
This is a fee for stickers.
So that money stays in the agency fund of the town. If they're assessed by the district, then they have to pay money in.
Can you go back a
They've only
little
been
bit
assessed-
and give us a little bit of history
What
as
do you
as to
want?
how this whole thing got set up with CMAS?
Well, when CMAS came in, they needed a place to put the rubbish. We had the landfill, which was, became a district landfill in 1973, as a landfill for the three towns, up there on, what's that?
Tahoney.
Road or
Tahoney
Farm
Road.
Market or,
Farm to market.
yeah, because there's three roads in one. So as part of that deal, they said, let them dump there, and they pay the district a fee, then they pay the town a per ton fee for all the private haulers from the town. So they collect money on that too. And I think they're getting $30 a ton. Don't quote me on it, I believe that's what it is, from all the private haulers. They get to dump down the CMAS for free. The district, again, the towns collect the money, three different rates. The towns keep the money unless they're assessed. And in 10 years, they've been assessed, at least Wareham's been assessed 3 times. They bring in between $160,000 and $180,000, I believe, in stickers. It's very difficult for me to get those numbers. It's like chasing your tail sometimes. And so if you do that over 10 years and you balance it out, they brought in over $1 million. And I think they paid out about $225,000. So at the end of the year, the agency fee, the agency fund just gets swiped into the general fund. Covanta basically covers all costs of operation at this point in time. We can't charge them for legal fees and a few other things, fuel, but they cover the cost of the employees, just about everything, 95 to 97% of the cost. Plus, we get a fee for letting them dump up into the landfill. So, and that's generally how you can build the money. I don't know what the previous executive director did. I don't know what the previous overseeing committee did. But it should, in my opinion, it should have never gone into the hole. At this point in time, and when did they take over? January of 18? I think we have approximately $600,000. And since that point in time, it fluctuates, you know, sometimes you get a bigger bill coming in, because most of it's passed through. Most of the costs are all passed through. But this is soon to come to an end, because the landfill will be capped.
Well,
And the same thing will be for the town. So that they will not be, the private haulers in town will not be dumping for free. So the town will lose that $30 a ton if that's what, I think that's what they're collecting.
The landfill is only taking the sludge, the burn sludge from the.
No, they can
steam
take a
ash.
percentage, they take the fly ash, but they can also take a percentage of solid waste, depending on the loads
I
and
think
if
they
the
will still
plant breaks
dump it up there
down.
besides the
They
sludge.
do a little bit, not a lot.
I believe the term is called bypass waste.
You know, what's left over from burning, whatever you call it.
Yeah,
Left, the stuff, that's what I thought, the only thing they were dumping up there was what's left over from the furnaces. They're still dumping material up there? I didn't think so.
Not a lot.
not a lot, it's, the way an incinerator works is the same as the sewage treatment plant
Yeah.
works. You know,
You have leftover
sometimes
material, I understand
you have
that.
leftover material, or it just can't burn, it can only burn X many tons an hour.
Right.
Same as a treatment plant can only do so many gallons. If they exceed that, it's called bypass waste, and I have no idea what those figures are. I've been
And you
on
can only
this,
do a percentage.
yeah, and I've only been on the job for 2.5 weeks, so, you know, I don't have all of the facts yet.
Joe has like 35 or 40 years in the solid waste and the refuse industries, private and public. He's a good asset to have on the committee.
You ended up with this, Jim, because of corruption, correct?
Myself?
Well, I mean, the tri-town corruption.
Well, yeah, corruption and people, as far as I'm concerned, the oversight wasn't there, because, you know, there's a funding mechanism.
But I mean, we're doing it on our own now, Wareham's doing it on our own, we're not a tri-city anymore, correct?
No, we're still a
Still Tri-City?
district. We're still a district, and we'll still be a district, as far as I'm concerned. We should continue after to be able to, after the end of 2020. And to offer residents a cheaper alternative to curbside. Because people of 1 and 2 family homes don't need to pay $500 a year, and that'll go up because the private haulers are gonna have to pay per ton. And right now, we have an offer of, what is it, $75 a ton
Yes,
for a 3-year contract. And they've also offered that to the towns.
the towns being the private haulers in the case of Wareham that haul within the town of Wareham.
In Marion and Rochester. I mean, Marion and Carver. Rochester kind of gets a free ride because the plant's there. So they get all sorts of special things. So we've done a lot of calculation. They hired Jeff Osuch. He was the executive secretary, I believe, in Mattapoisett or Fairhaven. He was also head of DPW before that. I think he does a very good job. He provides us a lot of numbers. He's collecting tonnage, vehicles coming in, what towns are coming from, so we can break it down to like Wareham's like 65% of the vehicles going into either Marion or Rochester. Carver and Marion flip-flop, depending whether, you know, which town you're in. Carver will be like almost nothing in Marion, 30-something% in Rochester. And Marion's just the opposite, they're the 30% there, and Carver's almost nothing. And Rochester, who gets to use the facilities, I don't know how, but they do, is just a tiny speck. Rochester has curbside pickup, Marion has curbside pickup. Even though the town's paying for it, they just went to private haulers. We do not have curbside pickup for our residents. Everybody has to pay for it themselves. So if we can offer a cheaper alternative, in which we're gonna charge $125 for the sticker this year, then the following year, a bag fee probably. I'd like to go with a bag fee and not have a sticker shock sticker price, because that would just drive people away. Yes.
You know who getting a free ride is these guys with pickups that do dump runs. I mean.
Correct.
And then if you do a bag, you know, you're still gonna have people like me that
We're
are
gonna
not
sell
gonna
the
use it.
bags.
You're gonna sell the bags, so.
We'll have specific bags. So, I mean, that's kinda
Plastic bag.
on the burner. Well, where you gonna put them? You can have biodegradable plastic bags too, correct?
Well, the bags that you're referring to are larger than the ones they're actually
I think
addressing.
well, there'd be two sizes.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about the people coming in, they pretty much control that over in Marion because they are district employees. Over in Rochester, that's totally operated free of charge by Covanta, CMAS Covanta. So they don't really police it, but they don't care what comes in. And we're not paying tonnage there, so at this point, I mean, at this point, people come in, as you just said. When we take over the operation, that will not happen. There's discussion about whether Marion will stay in, whether that Benson Brook will still be operational, because it doesn't have the room for expansion. And improving Rochester with some new compactors, because the ones that are there are pretty much on their last legs. Possibly changing the road, the interior, or coming in a different from, was it King Philip's Highway there? Or just changing the interior configuration so we can handle cars that come in early on Saturday and start stacking up outside, so that's not a good thing.
You might give, for the 125, you might give a resident 52 tickets. They go in and they hand a ticket over as they go in. And that would prevent someone from making 10 runs a day.
mean charge them, or
No, you're saying it's 100, the sticker fee is going to be 125
This year.
this year.
coming, right?
All right, so give them 52 tickets. They give a ticket to the attendant as they go in,
Once a week.
Ticket
Once a
for
week.
what?
And then what?
Ticket for what?
or dumping.
Dumping what?
Per bag?
Well, but right
Per
now,
load.
Per
per
car.
load, per load.
Okay,
So
I understand, I understand what you're saying.
Per load in a car, per load in a quarter-ton pickup, half-ton pickup?
Whatever you want,
Well,
whatever you
I
decide.
think you should have to, well, what Carver's done is they said nothing larger than 3/4 ton pickup.
Mhm.
I think it needs to be a limit.
That's a good standard.
And I don't think we should charge differently for a little car, a medium truck, or up to a half ton, 3/4 ton, regular truck, not with sides on it and stuff.
Right.
So for next year, that could work, but for the year after, it will not work. Because the operation has to be totally self-funding. The operation, these are estimates now. For the operation, it's about $540,000, and for getting rid of the refuse is about equal, maybe a little less, as we were able to cut down by having 2 employees there, looking at who's bringing what in. You can't bring in all the extra stuff. So it's like $1.2 million for an operation. So we have to be able to reach that figure.
You made the decision to charge 1 1/4 per.
The decision hasn't been made yet.
Yeah, we voted on that.
No, we didn't vote on it. We're voting on it this,
I thought we voted on it.
no, we didn't.
But your collections, my puzzle is that your collections for this first year, anyway, while you're still with the CMAS contract, far exceeds what your expenses are. So you're banking it.
But we need to do improvements. Plus, when you move forward, and we have some money now, and that's gonna, the improvements in the engineering,
Well, you gotta show what your
Estimated,
expenses are gonna be ahead of time before you set that rate.
we've already kind of went through that. And we're looking at, the rough figures of $300,000. Nothing's in writing yet. All right?
So what's 125, what will that get you? You continue to do what you do today?
We can continue to
Except
do,
you'll cut out
plus
the
we can
trucks.
also evaluate how many people are gonna stay in the program. We can't do that at the end of the term and just end up with nothing to work with. Because, I mean, we own the 5 acres down in Rochester, we don't own Marion. So, It's a way to gauge how many people are gonna still be interested. We could go from, do you know what the sticker count is, Joe?
No, not
That's like, I'm telling you, it's
a,
got,
125.
who knows the sticker count? I've asked 100 times.
125.
So, say 5,000 stickers. I think it's like 7, but you're gonna have a drop. Marion might not, if we don't keep Benson Brook open, Marion may not wanna stay in the district. But their usage is minimal. I think it's a good program. I think it's a better deal than what the residents will get curbside, especially once they get the private haulers are gonna have to charge $75 a ton.
Do you still see being able to, like today, except for bodies, dumping bodies, do you be able to see, you taking wood there and that kind of, and
Well, we're talking about mattresses, because the state offers a program.
It's just me and my mother.
And also, if we have all the towns signed up and do the proper paperwork, they'll pay for the first year of bags to get us going on that. They'll cover that funding, you have to do it through a grant. It's, you know, and if Marion leaves, it's a district of 2. You could be a district of 1, right? Depending on the tonnage, you could just cut it down to 3 days a week. You know, and if you can offer the residents a cheaper alternative, save them 50% on trash, you know, maybe 600 to 300 or 250, I think it's a good thing. Not everybody has, not everybody, and I didn't want $125, I suggested $75, but looking at the numbers, the $125 covers operational costs. The bag fee will cover the disposal cost.
So you pay the sticker fee, and then in addition, you pay the bags.
Weekly or whatever, how many you want, you get 10 at a time, or, you know, you can get a bag this big for $1.50, $2, you can get a bag this big for $2.50, depending on the size of the family. So if you need 3 bags, it's gonna cost you, what, $7.50 a week?
Yeah, a lot of
If
the
you're a
markets
single
get
person,
involved.
huh?
A lot of the markets get involved. I used to live in
Correct,
Somerset,
correct.
and you just go into the market and say, I want to buy a roll of,
Yeah.
and they're all stamped with Somerset, of course.
So, again, the director has done a great job doing, you know, vehicle counts. And we've got about, I guess up to, Benson Brook, I think we have it since January or February. Route 28, we had to hire a security company, because there's only one man that CMAS provides us there. So we hired, and they paid for like 6 weeks of it, and we funded, I think, 3 or 4 additional weeks to determine, again, the percentage of use from what towns. Because as you break it down, that's where the cost factor comes in, right? When you charge stuff back, especially when if someone leaves the district, you have to kind of know what percentage of the operation that they're.
They currently
They're
use the
right.
operation, and as a result of 125, they're going to drop off in some way.
And truthfully, some people think that you get money back, and I don't believe that's what happens. When you leave the district, you leave the district, but you're responsible for all charges incurred up to that point. It's not like, you know, you leave the district and there's $400,000 and you can leave with whatever percentage of the use that you've had. That doesn't
No, you
happen
can't do that.
way.
No.
So, what do you think, Joe? You add anything?
A couple of observations in my 2.5 weeks, and prior to that, going to 2 meetings. Oh, by the way, I grew up in Somerset, so I'm very familiar with what happened there. In the back, coming from the solid waste field, I think a lot of people tend to forget we are offering a public health and safety service. And I think that tends to get lost in the message that's going out there.
Top salt.
It is a
Tough
tough
sell.
sell. You know,
Tough
it is,
sell.
for some reason, people think they need sewers and they don't need, garbage
I
disposal.
understand.
But,
Still a tough sell.
yeah, but living in the Riverside area of Wareham, East Wareham, Onset, Agawam, whatever you wanna call us, I know where the waste is gonna end up. And they're the right-of-ways of all those streets that go down towards Muddy Cove. And whatever we do as a town, whether we decide to stay with the district or not, we're still gonna have to have some program for everyone. And unfortunately, we're gonna have to enforce it. And that's gonna be the more difficult part. When we talk about bags, or we talk about this, that, and the other thing, there's the whole other part of solid waste we need to talk about. That's your grass clippings. It's 18% of what the average homeowner puts out. They have construction debris. The last time I went to Route 28, the two pickup trucks in front of me were loaded with fence posts. That doesn't fit in the bag real well.
We don't really accept those.
Yeah, we're not supposed to accept those.
Well, that's across the street.
Yeah, it's across the street, yeah,
It's
yeah,
Rochester.
right in the ditch. And, but, so what is in the back of my mind and everything that's going on here is whatever we decide to do, it's the citizens that we're trying to service, provide them a service. And we're gonna do the best we can to come up with a reasonable price, whatever that ends up being. And if the citizens don't wanna use it, I don't know what's gonna happen at that point.
Well, as Dom has said, it's a tough sell, because we've had reasonably inexpensive trash disposal.
You've been
In the
living in
past
a
few
la la
years.
land.
That's right, you've been
for-
living in a dream world, all of us have.
So what have other towns done when they increase these fees? I suspect, as you indicated, people who don't wanna pay them are just gonna go dump them in the street.
Well, I mean, I have a list here.
What are we gonna do?
They used Cape Towns, which sort of similar but different because they're over the bridge and they have to haul. For us, I mean, the haul's like across the street if we did the contract with Covanta, so that's a cost savings there. Barnstable's $2.50, let's see, the two ones that charge per bag, Chatham and Dennis, they're at $182 and $120. Then you charge a per bag fee. And I don't know, and then these other towns are $2.50, Orleans is $125. I don't know if the town offsets the cost or not, because they have to haul it up here. They have to put it in a trash train, right?
Trash
Yeah,
train, yeah,
trash train,
comes
pull
by
it,
all the
so it
time.
can't be cheap. And they're saying the average is 167 with, yeah, they're saying 167 for the sticker.
But Jimmy, those are small population towns, especially in the
You know
winter.
what, I don't believe the cost changes much. You don't get a discount for volume with trash, all right, so, and it costs X amount to operate it, and if you're gonna charge X amount per bag to dispose of it, it doesn't matter if it's a small town or a large town. It costs X amount per. That's my opinion. I mean,
My parents moved from Somerset to West Yarmouth. So in their later years, and then they eventually ended up in New Hampshire, they kind of grew up with the trash situation on the Outer Cape. And that's something that evolved over 20 years to the current situation they have now. Our nearest neighbor, Bourne, has a very elaborate system, but that's evolved over 40 years. They just celebrated 30 years recycling. And since 1982, Wareham, for better or for worse, has been involved in kind of an artificial situation where Covanta or CMAS or whoever it was at the time
yeah, same thing.
was subsidizing the private hauler by paying some percentage of the tipping fee. If people brought the waste to the two transfer stations, they really weren't being charged what it was worth.
I don't believe the haulers pay anything if they're from the three towns.
No, they're subsidizes, I'm gonna
Okay.
finally get to see the contracts Tuesday, which go back to 1982 and has been amended about a dozen times. But as I understand it, they're subsidized at a rate somewhere around $35 or $40 a ton. There is a fee that's paid. And what have they done? It's evolved over since 1982. The towns around us have evolved into where they are today. We're gonna have to evolve into the 21st or the 20th century, I guess, in the next year and a half. And so we got a lot of catch up to do.
Are there alternative ways of doing this? Because, again, my concern is, you go from $40 to $125, and the only option is a private hauler for $500 a year. A third of this town is not gonna use either.
Well, I don't know if I agree with that, it's an either or
All right, so
situation.
let's assume it's 20%.
And I guess you have to ferret those people out and say, hey, you gotta do one or the other.
Well, what I'm saying is, isn't there a way to, for the town to,
Well, if the town
through
wants to
taxes-
subsidize, I mean,
Yes.
they've collected $1 million since 2000, million, say, $1.2 million since 2010. They put it in the general fund and spent it, except for the $225,000 they had to pay in over the 10 years. If they want to subsidize that cost, that's fine, but otherwise, we have to charge as much as it's gonna cost to run the
Other
facility
ways
and
to do
distribute, and get rid of the refuse. And plus, you have to have a little bit extra. You can't run a negative balance, right? That's not good
No,
practice.
is there another
So
way
you
to
wanna-
do that?
Go ahead, do you have any good?
No, it's unfortunately, it's gonna, the same as the gentleman that spoke before us, there's some hard decisions that have to be made. That you can't just simply turn the sewer system off, you can't turn the solid waste off. People have tried. And it's a very, I would hope there would be some way we could agree to phase in a full program. But even with the 800,000 only does 2/3 of an annual cost of operating our district.
What do you mean, the 800,000?
If they gave us 800,000, that's, it's
But you
2/3.
could do that to offset
Yeah,
the cost
you
of the
could
stickers or
let it
something,
go
but,
for another
I mean,
year.
I don't think the town wants to dig into their pockets. They do not wanna
Towns
get
not
into
gonna,
solid
towns not gonna
waste.
subsidize anything.
Isn't
Forget
Marion-
about it.
Isn't Marion
Forget all
going to
about it.
curbside?
Not gonna
Well, they
happen.
always had curbside.
Yeah.
What they did is they privatized the municipal curbside because of the cost to buy equipment, what's paying the men, to privatize curbside pickup, in which they didn't override in order to cover the costs. The individual does not pay the hauler. Now, they got a great bid, I think, because the company wanted to get in there. But what happened, and they also have it written in so that they bump up after year X per year, a certain percentage and whatnot. So it's not free. You know, it's being covered by what they expended on the municipal hauling program, plus the override. And they were willing to do that.
Yeah.
We
Well,
do
we know it's
not
not
have any,
free.
huh?
It's not free, we know, because Jody and I are from Stoughton,
Right.
and we do a municipal up there. I think they still run municipal. The municipality runs it, not privatized.
Right. Now,
So it
when,
is-
when Joe mentioned they pay a fee, the private haulers from these three towns, that gets passed back to the towns. That's where we get that $30 a ton. Do you know, this whole thing is like you put it in the top of the box, you give the handle a crank, and money comes out in 2 shoots.
Like, it really isn't. If you look at I believe the advertised price at CMAS is $80 a ton. We have on the table a guaranteed rate of $75 a ton.
For 3 years.
For 3 years with a possible 2-year add-on. Now,
Sounds like a
there's
good
some
deal.
question whether we can even sign that, at least.
Well, we cannot sign it on behalf of the towns. I mean, as far as, we don't believe we can, Joe and I don't. We believe the towns have to agree to that fee.
Because,
Through town meeting?
We're not,
You're a quasi-government agency.
we are, we are,
So why can't you sign it?
on behalf of the town,
it's in the agreement
It
we
goes back to
have.
the agreement.
It's in,
The
yes.
original agreement.
It doesn't cover it, the agreement doesn't cover it, and we're getting into an area now where a certain gentleman that was employed by the district took certain liberties and is being sued, and I'd rather not discuss.
we don't know anything about it.
I know his name.
It's all criminal anyway, it's not,
Yeah, you know, so,
I know anything about it.
if we're being, you know, a little bit cautious, we're being cautious for a very good reason. But yes, there is a way to do this. I think, but I did say on several occasions, as a minority voice, it's really up to what the towns want to do. You know, we can propose anything, and you can put it on your annual warrant,
Yeah,
and you can vote no, and then we, according to our agreement, we have no idea what happens at that point.
until we get to look at the successor agreements with Covanta and the district, all we can go on is the original 1973 contract between the three towns. It spelled out what you can do, what you can't do. As far as I can see, unless it's spelled out in these successor agreements, they have just been running how they wanted to run.
Yeah,
And,
no, because they have no oversight.
didn't.
They do not come before this committee at all, they do not appropriate
No, they-
through town meeting at all.
It's not in the charter at all, Claire?
No, it originally, when CMAS first went in, there was a lot of discussion, especially with residents in West Wareham, and so we had started a West Wareham citizens group to work with CMAS because of the amount of traffic coming in and that kind of thing, but the original agreement was with the three towns. So it has to go back to the towns in the original contract. In the early, I don't really want to get into because I'm not really part of that group, but being part of knowing what went on back then,
Is that all the same?
we worked very closely with Susan
No, that's
King
one
and
That's your reading.
the managers of CMAS, because originally they wanted to bring all the trash trucks down Cranberry Highway. The impact to the town was significant. And at that time, the Regional Refuse District had a great committee, and they had good management. Somewhere along the line, that got lost. And the towns were not diligent. I don't want to be accused of it, but they weren't diligent in oversight. And so it just kind of took off on its own. And I think this committee is trying to bring that back.
well, some of us are. Some individuals, like I said, they think they're gonna, if they leave, they pull money out and this and that. I think because it was self-funding, and the town was able to tag on their end, unless it's in the successor agreements, it says otherwise from that, that's all I've been given. And there's 4,000 pages of agreements that have been successor agreements since that one. Am I correct? Is that what the?
4,000 pages.
So, we're trying to say, can you give us like a summary of these agreements and which ones are pertinent now and how it operates? I understand how it operates, you know, with so much per ton when they dump up to the landfill, that money comes back. Same with the town, you know, when they dump, whoever the haulers are, they collect it. I don't know if they collect it directly or if it's paid. I don't know if Covanta directly pays the town after they collect it, or they give the town the tonnage and they bill the hauler. I'd have to look at that again. You guys should know that, you're the FinCom.
That's the issue. Excuse me, I was just thinking about it. You are worse than the prudential committees, because we have absolutely no say in terms of public meeting. Public meeting, yes, but there's no accounting, there's no reporting structure.
Well, we hold monthly meetings, I post them, and the minutes are there.
If you look at least as I read the last agreement he has, and that's the last
I
one.
just read it,
The whole thing?
and it says,
I'm supposed to give you an annual, the district is supposed to provide, as a courtesy, I guess, the towns an audited budget, which in turn goes on the annual warrant. And that's the process. And the process is silent.
It's that, there's no
What happens
process
if what happens
follows
if the
that.
town meeting says no?
that,
Unless the successor agreements say otherwise. They've just been running how they wanted to.
Yeah.
Same thing with the town administrators took over. There was no change, correct? In talking or bringing information forward. I spoke with you about it a week and a half ago, 2 weeks, and then you said, hey, why don't you come talk to us? So we're trying to ferret it out, to find out if the current agreements or the newer agreements say otherwise. If not, then nobody's following process and has not been following process for as long as I've lived in this town. I've been here 38 years. You make a copy.
no, what this agreement says, I just read it real quick. What this agreement says is that you guys are just basically an advisory committee that reports to the selectmen, which also has to be voted by the town warrant. That's what it says. I just didn't show you the page.
There are two parts. One is the initial budget and one is the annual budget.
Right.
There are basically two parts to it, and it's hidden in, it's just one phrase that separates the two.
In Mass General Law, which allows us to create a disposal district, gives us more authority. So I don't know which supersedes what, because I did mention, I says, look, we're not technically supposed to collect fees.
Correct.
The towns need to collect them. They should hold them in, I don't know if it would be an agency fund or a, not agency fund, a enterprise fund and or a
Revolving.
revolving
would be
fund,
an
so that
enterprise.
it, well, because it's all self-funding. And then, roll it over year after year, and then we would charge back to the towns the percentage of whatever stickers they had to cover the costs. And then anybody who buys bags, that just covers the disposal fee.
I understand what you're saying and what you're trying to do, right, but you guys can only advise what the town votes on. You really don't have any power to make any big decisions. You can advise, that's what this says.
Well, we.
What it says and what has been taking place.
No, I'm just telling,
are two
I'm
different
just,
things.
well, what they just
Yeah.
gave me, that agreement I just read, that's what it says.
Basic,
As far as budgeting, you're correct.
well, budgeting, if.
Finances, the whole deal.
Yeah.
You can
Budgeting,
advise
finance.
what has to be voted
We
on.
oversee
If
the
the-
operation of
If the
the,
town meeting doesn't, was my question, if the town meeting, it goes to the annual town meeting.
Correct, that's what it says.
And if the town votes no, what happens? I mean, that
They
we'll
was,
throw your trash in your
I
ear.
think they would.
Whatever, I'm just saying,
That's why they
that's
never
what it
came.
says.
Because you have, the same thing would be the issue with your fees. Each town is charging a different fee.
Well, no,
Well, if you put
the
that before a
district's gonna
town
set-
meeting, one of those committees can say no.
The district will set the fee equal for all towns.
We will, if
And
you
then,
talk about it
and then the
now, it
towns
has
can,
not
no, and
been.
the towns can
passed.
vote
I'm talking
on
about the past.
it. If that's, unless there's successor agreements that state otherwise. All right? Marion's
Gotta
about
bind
the
it in
only,
writing.
Marion's about the only town that really charged what they should have. Everybody else was kind of making money off the deal, because you could dispose for free. Do you follow me? Marion charged $10, that probably covered the cost, and if they had to cough up 80,000 1 year out of 10, 225,000, one year out, out of 10 years, it was a wash for them. The other two towns were making money. Carver just went up. They were $20 for 2 years, and they went to $50 for 2 years. Now it's $50 per year. And the cost for disposal and operation to the towns is zero.
Yes.
if the district wishes to continue, or the town's wishes to continue, we are going to have to visit the enabling legislation. It amounts to
Yes.
2.5 pages. That's the enabling legislation. Back to 1973, it was 2 pages, and they added another page which allowed us to buy the land in Rochester. For example, I went and looked it up. There's something called the South Berkshire Solid Waste District, or something like that. Their enabling legislation is 18 pages long. It covers a lot of stuff. Our agreement that we're working on is only 9 pages.
You have a copy of that?
I just gave it to you.
That one right there.
Yeah, that one right there. But there are supplemental agreements between the district and a whole bunch of other entities. Now,
No, it's supplemental, that,
It's not in there right there.
there you go.
I just read it.
it's, no, but that covers all sorts of different things that we don't charge, you know. ADM owned the land, they created a corporation, one Kinko. We rent the land from them for the landfill. All right, we don't own that land. And then we dump on it, and then per ton, we get some money back. All the costs are covered. Now, on that document, it was created for the landfill and not for the operation that we have with Covanta. There could be a successor agreement that I have not seen and you have not seen, which specifies differently what the operation is and how, and what the input from the towns are and responsibility of the district to the towns for operation is. I haven't seen it. I came as Curtis and explained kind of how things operate, what we're doing, because otherwise you guys would just be in the dark.
Have you asked anybody for?
Yes,
I asked too many questions.
I ask a lot of questions, and I don't necessarily care whether people enjoy my questions or not.
Question's a question.
The question's a question, and
Does
the
town council
answer,
have?
I think in my, I don't know, 40-some years in the environmental, solid waste, whatever area, I think I've learned how to ask the question. I also know when someone's not exactly telling me the truth. I also learned how to listen really well. And all of what I just said now doesn't give me a warm and fuzzy feeling about what I'm gonna look at Tuesday. So, I anticipate, and I'm starting back from the oldest record that our executive director has, which is the original lease. It was the original lease dealing with CMAS, which is 1982. And that seems to be where things
We'll know more.
got a little off track from the only other agreement that we had up until then. Well, that agreement adds the one transfer station in 1995?
No, 90, yeah, 95.
95. So up until 1995, there was no change to that agreement.
Unless there's those successor
Unless
agreements.
those successor
were signed
agreements-
off by the selectmen and through the town.
That's right.
And once,
If-
you know what,
Which
the
is all the
you know what
control.
answer Joe got was, we have 4,000 pages, you're welcome to come in and look.
And that's what I'm
So,
gonna start
And
Tuesday.
he'll do it.
I'll read it.
Because I'm retired and you've annoyed me.
That's you.
Go get him. Go get him.
So that's where we are. How do you like it?
I'm glad you're working on it.
Yep.
Well,
You did a
thank you.
big job.
I
I'm glad
appreciate
somebody
it.
is, good grief.
Because once I saw that, I'm like, and then, I read it briefly and Joe read it and says, hey, and then I had to reread it because I knew he read it. And we talked about it a little bit and it's like, whoa. It's like a freight train, unless there's a successor agreement that nullified that or says in addition to an addendum to.
Now, could the missing documentation,
You know, the
do
town
you
hall
have any
should have,
confidence
town
that
hall
it
should
even
have it, but
exists?
they don't.
Knowing it was there initially? You know it was there initially. Do you have any context or record of certain supplemental agreements in place?
You can't read it, you know, that says nothing.
Dealing with CMAS, dealing with the landfill, dealing with Rochester, dealing with,
Rochester's separate.
you know, but they're all listed in this, in the 4,000 pages as supplemental agreement.
There's 4 pages of index for
And-
4,000 pages.
You know, and
That piece of paper right there, you guys, if you're working off of that, you got
No,
this to work
hey,
on.
then,
That's
well,
you, that piece of paper right there is about this
no,
useful.
No, that would be useful if that was a process that they,
That takes away all your power.
yes,
what do you need power for?
You
We
guys
have-
need, you guys need to make up numbers, you guys need to
We
make
do.
up amounts of money and
We do.
everything.
We do.
That
We
says
have.
you can only advise.
And then
It
we
gives
have
you no power to make a decision.
I think you're still reading there is a section that deals with after the initial budget. Okay, and I missed that the first time that I read it, until I was reading through the document, saying, wait a minute, a lot of this is redundant. And I went back and said, oh, now we're talking about we do on an annual basis. And on an annual basis, we're to give you an audited statement of what our expenses are, anticipated expenses are,
It's a draft right here.
and you are to put it on the towns are to put it on the next available annual warrant to vote on.
Okay, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
You can only advise. The town still has to vote on everything.
Okay, if that,
In other words, even the amount of money that you wanna make up and spend and say everything like that, I think you guys should have more power to do what you're doing.
Under the general laws, we do, but under that charter,
Yeah.
it doesn't, so.
that's why I say we have to if the district is going to continue, other than for the next couple of years for a transition period, it is gonna have to be revisited. But, again, it's gotta be revisited from the towns. What do the towns want us to do?
Right.
You know, we can come up with all these grandiose plans, we're gonna do recycling, we're gonna make it go away, and, but that, if the towns aren't
Yeah,
gonna.
you know, and if they'd rather just have people individually pay $500-600 and the
But-
price is
but-
just gonna go up per year and not have an option to help keep the cost of private hauling down, then, you know, that would be the town's decision.
But Jimmy, let me ask you a serious question now. From what that says everything is town meeting. Now, you know I've been in the town for a long time. I've been going to town meetings forever. I cannot ever remember a question coming up at a town meeting regarding trash disposal.
Again,
Not,
maybe this
Claire,
is-
when's the last time you remember one?
It would have been back in the 60s.
See, before my time.
Yeah.
So then, if that says you guys have to bring everything up to the town meeting and have no power, who the hell's had the power over the last 30 or 40 years?
like I said,
Dominic, if I could just jump
Go ahead,
in,
please.
going back to originally when that was set up.
Yeah.
73.
The towns hired
I understand
an
that. I
administrator, and
understand
then
that.
this committee, and
But
then
that-
they were supposed to come back to the towns. And initially, they were doing that back in the late 60s, early 70s, and then somewhere along the line,
Got lost.
the towns didn't put people on that committee, and so it was the business manager for the district committee that took it upon himself to just keep running it, never, and I'm going back to
That was
other town
formed-
administrators and,
You go back to this,
That
That
was
did-
formed
before
in
my time.
73. We entered into contract with Covanta in 82.
But,
And that was formed just for the landfill.
but that never
There's
came
a
up at
sep-
town
there's a
meeting.
separate contract with Covanta/CMAS.
Okay.
I don't know what that says. So, I don't wanna speculate.
No,
Joe's
no.
gonna do some research and he'll ferret it out and
It
we'll.
sounds very much like it was over time with the changing of personnel, which is the one fault you have with government. There's so much turnover of volunteers, that the next one that came in and said, but this is the way we've always been doing things, and it just continued on. And it perpetuates itself. And as a result, you find out,
And if it
you never
wasn't
knew you were
costing
supposed
the
to have that
town
information.
Any money?
and what you don't
Nobody
know,
cares,
doesn't hurt
right?
you.
yeah.
Nobody cared, because it wasn't costing the town a penny.
That
They
was
were
the
actually
issue.
making money on it.
So
Say,
we
could
all
I ask
agree,
a
we need
question?
to figure out what the paperwork says, and
2020.
adjust it accordingly, so let's
Well,
move on.
what will change for 2020 as far as dumping? Just $125 and everything's the same, dumping,
Not 2020, 29.
20, this is 2019.
This year coming up.
Next year,
Everything will
2020.
be the same.
You'll recycle metal, all that stuff, you're gonna.
Yeah, you know, they were getting nothing on the metal recycling until Jeff Osich changed vendors. So there might have been money coming in, but it wasn't coming back to the district. We're getting between $1,000 and $1,600 a month on that over the last few
We've
months.
been pickled.
Well, you know, that's yet to be found out, but I can't see where there were great expenditures so that the district did not make money year over year over year over year. So, we're looking for the best, we're hoping we can find successor agreements. Otherwise, they've just been operating however they wanted to. And, I mean, I discussed this with Derek, and I said, well, what the hell's going on? And, you know, what do you do? Continue to do that, not say anything, and just say bullshitches? Excuse my French.
Zero involvement of the town, though, that's wrong. That's not what that says.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're on top of it. It's very obviously, there's been a lot going wrong, and you're almost gonna have to rebuild the entire process once you read the book.
There is no mention of going in front of the towns in the 4,000 pages I'm gonna look at,
So
at
is
least
it-
in the summary.
Well, you'll
I
be here
didn't hear
anyway,
I'm
we'll
sorry.
invite you.
No, the 4,000 pages I'm gonna be shown Tuesday, in the summary of what the documents
The
are.
index, yeah.
The index doesn't mention anything about town warrant or anything like, in the titles.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't believe, since 1982 at least, there has been anything gone in front of the board.
So I can tell you there is now.
That would be between might show up in the agreement that the three towns signed with each other.
In
Not so
Covanta.
much, no, between them to form the
Yeah.
district. Because originally, the three towns formed the district, no, it had
In
nothing.
1973, that's what that is.
Yeah,
Right.
but she says at 82, because as far as CMAS was concerned, they could care less whether it went before a town meeting.
Oh, that's,
They
yeah.
have an agreement, they have
But
the
that
obligation.
says it's supposed to.
We don't
Well,
know
that's- this
who
is
signed,
72.
we don't know who signed any of the documents after that point in time until we look at it.
That's
Read
just
it, Dave?
additional copies.
All right.
Put it in the first bag that you
Dave,
get,
did you read it?
and let's start from here.
Like
Come up with a recommendation as to what
like Joe
you think
said,
we ought to do.
basically, if there's no successor agreement which stipulates otherwise, we need to really rewrite the charter. That charter and present it to the towns. What do you think? What are you saying, Tom?
Well, I don't know if you gotta rewrite the charter. I mean, I think it's supposed to come up to through town meeting by what the amendment says.
I just want to know what Tom was just thinking.
Oh, don't tell me.
Well, I mean, you had suggested that we have a sticker and then a bag charge. And that is somewhat gonna guess what that's gonna cost us in the first year. And then over time, that's gonna get refined so that
The
it's a
bag charge
break-even
wouldn't come
situation.
until at least halfway through or until the following year.
Pardon me?
The bag charge would not come until halfway through next year or the following year. That one sticker fee will cover the operation. Because
So
we're
we're
still
talking
getting
about
zero
2021
cost.
right now?
as far as the sticker fee,
Okay.
I mean, as far as the bag.
So you've got some,
Oh, we're trying to.
We're trying, yeah, and the biggest problem is trying to get all of the information on how did we get to this
well,
situation?
don't worry about it, we're here.
Uh-huh.
So I agree, but we have to either change the rules we play by or come through the towns every year, saying, this is what we're doing, this is what the costs are gonna be, and we'll discuss it with you. You'll put it on the warrant, either recommend it to go forward or not to go forward, and each town has to agree.
If you, but what I get back to is if we raise the price, even to just 125, the end of my street,
No, I
It's gonna
understand
look like
exactly what you're,
compliance.
I'm in the same situation.
you know, and so whatever happens, there's going to need to be some cooperation from the towns. I know, what was it, Marion has an internal task force amongst several of the departments to look into this. I know Wareham has the conservation.
Now, the natural resources department looks at the dumping,
Yeah.
tries to figure out who dumped what,
Yeah, but
boats
that's,
or rubbish or whatever.
Yeah, no, he's good at it.
He's good.
he's good at it, but I don't think there's enough of him. I don't think there's enough of him, is what I'm trying to.
Well, we gotta we gotta get on the water, guys, and find out.
So hopefully we can move forward. I believe we can offer a good service at a reasonable price. And we're trying to ferret through the documents and find out where we are.
I would forget the history, man. You're here.
Yeah.
And just follow that.
Yeah. I mean, don't
Well,
spend
yeah,
your time on.
Well, try to tweak it anyways, try to tweak it for the
We're
try to
looking for
tweak
the-
it into the modern times. It's obviously outdated. So use it and try to tweak it and then move on, that's the best
Yeah.
Or
thing.
just
And I think
develop a
that's-
new one.
Yep, and that's the operative word, we have to move on.
Yeah.
Did you
Gentlemen,
say just develop a new one? See, we get, that's kind of my idea, we get, and then someone said, just tweak it, so we'll work on it, depends what the committee wants to do. Some of the, I don't think some of the towns give a son of anything. So, just wanted to be upfront about it, I like transparency.
Well, we've gotta be the biggest contributor to the whole problem anyway.
Well, we're 64% one way or the other, and then they flip-flop, depending on the towns, 30%. Rochester's
Yes,
like,
I have that agreement.
You really have to go ahead, because in here, the tentative operating and maintenance budget says the committee shall annually prepare a tentative budget for the ensuing fiscal year.
If you wanted to.
so we
Attaching
kind of, we have a draft right
Then
here.
bring it forward to the
Yeah.
selectmen.
Okay,
vote on the
said
town.
committee shall mail a copy thereof to the
The
chairman
selectmen.
of the board of selectmen
Yeah,
and the finance or advisory committee
correct.
of any of each member town on or before November 15th.
To be placed on the
November
town warrant.
15th, right.
So,
But I don't know if the other towns are gonna do anything.
yeah,
but I think you've got to start over again and make something that works.
Well,
gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for coming,
Oopsie.
appreciate the information,
Okay.
we may not like it, but I
I'm
mean, we
also
appreciate
learning
it.
here.
Well, again, you could have just zipped it and said anything, continued on, and then if something happened, who hits a shan, and then you end up looking pretty foolish.
I scanned the two
But
agreements.
there might be successful agreements, we'll keep you informed.
Please do.
Good.
And when we have a formal operating budget, we will forward it to you.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I can make it full.
Thank you for taking on this task.
It's a pleasure.
That's enjoyable,
My
keeps me
emails
busy.
on that.
Did you do something to do at night, did you really need something?
No, I do a lot of reading, believe me, between, it's a big learning curve for me right now. But,
Good,
Good, good.
thank you.
good night.
Okay, the next issue, I think in your folder, you have the sequence of the fall town meeting. And we are on the old schedule. That is to say, in the previous town meeting, there was an amendment to the charter for what the schedule of the town meetings and how they're cycled. That has not been approved by the legislature as yet. So we are conducting ourselves on the old schedule, which is to our advantage, because we have ample time, and in case you needed the extra 2 weeks, and this schedule gives you that opportunity, doesn't it? It gives you the ability to do so?
Really. The warrant articles have to be in by the 5th.
10 days from now.
The selectmen will vote on them on the 10th, I believe.
Mhm.
The impact of what we're doing with electronic voting is going to be on the motions. The motions have to be completely finished, done, no changes, finished completely by October, well, they have to go out to Ohio October 14th, that's a Monday. Town hall is closed Friday, so they'll all have to be done on the 10th, so everything has to be done by the 10th. So what it does is, it just pushes up instead of getting the motions on Saturday night at 10:30, Bernie, or on Monday at 4 o'clock, these have to be done by October 10th, the motions. Completely finished, not just broad, but everything in them. And I have been talking to the different department
There's
heads.
6 weeks.
That's Columbus Day, right?
Columbus Day weekend is the 12th
I
to
can
13th.
see Matt there on typing the amendments.
Yeah, right, Tom.
It won't be Matt, it will be the company doing the electronic voting. How that works, I don't know if I've explained to you how this will work. The electronic voting is based on a PowerPoint presentation, so we will have to have that PowerPoint presentation with the motions done on by Monday the 14th. That has to go out to the company. The company then has a PowerPoint presentation which has built into it a connection to the handhelds. So they will operate, when it gets to the point that I say, okay, the moderator will now call for a vote, there will be a timer that will come up on the screen, and that's controlled by the representative from the company. And the minute that timer comes up on the screen, then the people will have the opportunity to press either yes or no. And I think we're gonna give them like 20 or 25 seconds. We haven't quite decided on that finally. I think 20 seconds is enough, but we may go with 25. Whatever they hit, the last hit, that's what counts. So, and then the tally immediately comes up the minute that gets down to 0. But, so the only thing it really changes is we have to get the motions done. Now, can we make amendments? Yes, we can. But I don't want to be making amendments to every single article.
Really, it'll take forever.
It will take forever and defeat the whole purpose of doing electronic voting. So I have talked with the department heads, I have talked to those that are submitting articles and said, look, this is what you need to do. You know, no longer can we wait till the day before town meeting, or no longer can you have a meeting at 4 o'clock and come in at 7 o'clock and give me a motion or give your board a motion. It's gonna have to be done.
So Claire, if an amendment is made after it goes to this company,
It goes to the company and they will do a blank PowerPoint page, and they'll cut and paste the motion and then fill in whatever the amendment is. So they will do it, they're pretty quick about it.
Assuming they know the amendment 2 weeks prior to.
So they
No,
can do it
can-
that
It
night.
can be amended that night.
Okay.
We can't make like a 20-page amendment. I mean, it's gonna have to be a minor amendment, and that's gonna have to come from me as a scope.
Okay.
Certainly, you know, if a dollar amount changes between when the motions get sent out in town meeting, I mean, if we know ahead of time, we can send them an email and say, we need to change this motion. I mean, we can tweak it, but they're gonna have to fly in with their equipment, so we have to get it done sooner rather than later.
You can do an amendment on the floor electronically.
Yes,
Just, because I've done electronic
Yeah,
vote,
yeah.
they gave 30 seconds, which was too long.
yeah, 30 seconds I found was a little too long. I
It
think
really
we
is,
go
it goes
with
quick, and you can change your mind.
Yeah, you
You
can
can hit yes and say, oh, geez, I meant to no, so it's, but that last one, when the clock
whatever you hit,
runs
the
out.
last one, when it goes down to 0, that's what it is. This is a trial run. I'm sure that we probably will have a couple of glitches. We went to Linfield. They had a brand-new moderator, 22 years old. His very first meeting, they had over 700 people. They had 2 rooms. And the very first vote that came up, it just didn't seem to match the number of people who checked in. And so everybody's going, something's not right here. So the representative immediately got up, went to the other room, and somebody had played with the handheld and changed the frequency on all of the remotes.
Oh,
So, I mean, that's something we're gonna have to, when people take them, tell them, please don't sit there and push every button, because they do have a radio frequency on them, and that's set, you know, ahead of time. They do come in, they check all the remotes ahead of time to make sure they're working. If somebody has one, it's not working, we will still have our tellers that will bring you a new handheld. We'll take it slow, but it's a free trial. I think it's worth at least giving it a
Are
shot.
they gonna record the number on the handheld for the person that took it?
No, that's a very different system. It's a more sophisticated system, and Wayland uses that. They actually have built-in transceivers and receivers. They have a very sophisticated system, and what they do is they take the state voting list, which has barcodes. And so when you come in and you check in, they will scan the barcode next to your name and scan the barcode on the handheld. And that links that handheld to you. So if you don't turn it back at the end of the night, they know where to find you. So that's how they do it. And in a representative town meeting, the votes do show up on the screen as to how the representatives vote. So that is linked to their name. Because if you're going to elect a representative, you want to know how he's voting and how he's representing you. So there are different systems out there. This one tends to be more affordable for smaller towns. It's been used in, I think, out of the 39 towns, a good percentage are using this one. Only Wayland and 2 or 3 others are using the more expensive. And that's because they have computer people on staff that understand programming and, you know, they tweak it. And Wayland has MIT graduates, and they are tweaking that whole system for option technology. So they're constantly updating their technology. But it's not costing them anything because their people are doing it, their Elvis committee.
What's the town cost on this, Claire?
What's this?
The town cost for us?
This is a free.
Oh, it's free?
It's a free
Okay.
trial.
Okay, oh, it's a
Free
free trial,
trial.
okay. If we, do you know
If
the
we
cost, if we
do
do
it-
accept it? Rough guess?
Roughly, if you wanted to buy the sets for 400 or so, 400, 450, it's around $17,000.
And the rent?
The rent is around 21 or 2,200 for 400 handhelds.
Okay.
You know, per meeting, and then you can keep them if you go 2 nights.
I can get you the data on that. A couple of months ago, you passed out the information of the bids and all.
Yep.
I'll get you copies of that.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna take attendance by facial recognition, I presume.
Oh, and fingerprints, the whole works, yep, yep.
I'm just afraid that.
You want the cavity
I'm
share.
afraid of, I don't know, maybe I'm old school, I'm just afraid of electronics, like, are they gonna know, because that handheld comes to me or comes to you, are they gonna be able to know every vote that you made, you know, I mean?
It will not know
It
that you
doesn't?
made that vote.
Not with this.
Okay.
What it will
Not with
do,
this
though, it
system.
will
Okay,
tally
okay.
for the town
There's
clerk.
a lot of people like to be, you know.
Yeah, no,
you know,
this is totally
okay,
anonymous.
that's all I wanna know.
No, Wayland, you would know,
Okay, that
Yeah,
other
and-
system
and
that
the
would tell you
representatives.
what I
Go
voted.
in the
Yeah.
town hall and see
Okay.
how it
but
went.
this is anonymous, we're not gonna know who you voted. But what it will show, and it's a way of recording for the town clerk, and setting a record
Yeah.
of, on each article, what the vote actually was, so that she doesn't have to sit there with a pen and pencil recording it, because she has to record all of that.
Okay.
So this will help her out. You can go back and there's some charts that will show trending and that kind of thing. So it does have some good points to it in that respect.
Great, any other questions? Thank you, Claire.
Got a lot of work ahead of us, boss.
Oh, we can handle it.
All right.
As
You
long as
say
we do
so.
things the old-fashioned way.
You say so.
Next thing we want to cover is our dues to the Association of Town Finance Committees in the amount of $280.
I'll make a motion that we pay that bill.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Unanimous.
Is this on the budget?
Yes.
I think we ought to approve the budget, and then when we have an exception on the budget, then bring it up for discussion.
Well, it isn't
So this
itemized on the
will-
budget.
This will just happen one
It's not
time a
on.
year.
Yeah. We just have excuse me, it's an expense line
Yeah, it's in
item.
our expense.
It covers everything. It doesn't cover Kelly, but it covers all our expenses that we
I
may have,
understand
printing
that,
and the
but
like.
you have a budget, that we spend $2,500 or whatever it is.
Right.
And we bring these things up 3 or 4 times.
But this is an invoice.
I understand that.
We're voting to
So
pay
if your budget is to spend $250, $289, and you've approved the budget, so when the bill comes in for $289, it just goes through. It avoids a delay, and it avoids us taking the time to even screw around with it.
I'm doing this as a courtesy, Tom.
I-
Because I can sign
I
that, I
understand, but
sign
the
that,
poor
Kelly
person,
has.
the person sent this bill is waiting to get paid.
Yeah.
That's not too fair either.
I think we haven't
You
spent,
gotta have a
overspent
budget.
our budget except for last year in as long as I've been here.
Yeah, so you
Well,
approve
We've
the
always had a
budget.
positive
Well, okay.
left over.
It'll take 3 seconds, I'm sure, to approve
Okay.
it, so let's just do it, and then that's a good idea.
And it's been done, so we're taken care of. Let's see, any other finance committee matters? Because of the time frame in which the article at the previous town meeting for the schedule of holding a town meeting, it presses us into a schedule that is, I think, intolerable to accomplish, especially at a, excuse me, spring town meeting, when we have the budget in itself to go over and review, in addition to all the other articles. I mean, this particular town meeting, so far, I know we have 3 or 4 from CPC. They're closing out some of their previously approved expenditures. Then there's the park up at
Shangri-La.
Shangri-La off Glen Hill. Yes, and one other.
Soccer field.
So far they have, yes, the Carver Fields, thank you. There's the pilot project, because we have a solar field coming in, we have transfers to the various accounts that we, retirement, et cetera, that we try to transfer more into it than we do on a budget, so we can keep ahead of it. As this town well knows, we're going broke and we can't afford to hold it anyway. But there's some WPC articles coming up also. I've been into to the selectmen. I haven't been able to get any paperwork at all out of them. So we could do this, I was hoping to schedule something this evening so we can get ahead of things. I have to talk to Patrick about that, because they assured me when we were doing this last year about rescheduling things, no problem, just go to the office, they'll give you what paperwork they have. They do have a petitioned article on the paper bag, the plastic bags. They wouldn't give me that paperwork either. So that's gonna be an issue.
Didn't one of the selectmen stand up at the spring town meeting and say to you, not to worry, you'll get all the cooperation you need from everyone?
They say that all the time.
So,
And it wasn't the
and it's
guy,
on record?
yep,
Yeah,
and it wasn't the guy that wears the bow tie either.
no.
But
Now,
the,
Bernie.
does anyone have any comments or questions about the tours that we had?
I think you did a great job arranging them.
Thank you very much. Is there anything anyone else would like to have a tour of? Now, the WPC wasn't as intimate as one would want, but we did have a building that stunk. But no, I think we learned a lot. And it's better, we're out there, we're more intimate with the person who's in charge. Ken and Peter were at the Tremont Nail. And the first time I ever saw the inside of the large building. Very, very interesting. Didn't realize part of it was the dam. On the other issues of actually holding hearings, I'd like to schedule the next 2 Wednesdays as hearing dates.
Good.
And by that time, we will definitely have paperwork and people who are petitioning.
So we have a meeting at 6:30 the next 2 Wednesdays.
Yes.
Thank you.
And Dominic, I'm going to scan this contract in that we just got from the CMW agreement. So you're gonna have to learn how to use the computer at your office.
What? So what we just did? I already
Yeah.
read it. I mean, I'll read it again.
No, once was enough.
I mean, I don't know, I read quick, what do you want to tell you?
Indeed, indeed. I don't speed read that fast.
1,000 words a minute.
Okay, the only other issue, someone on the planning board had brought up that they should form what they call a Wareham Congress. I think it's a reaction to the complaints of how long it takes everything to process through the various committees. And they really, as a group, are not aware of what the other one is doing or what their objectives are and what their processes. And I think it's a good idea. Bring everybody on the same page. And so planning, zoning, et cetera, can all go in the same direction. And be aware of the limitations that someone may have, such as approving the racetrack and not having enough capacity in the sewage system to handle it. But the racetrack gets its permits, and guy says, but I can't take a flush.
Come on, I like a racetrack around here.
back in the late 90s, that same parcel, I think, was for an amusement park. I think it was amusement or a racetrack, one or the other. And they had a permit at the time to put an exit in, add an exit to 25. But of course, that was for that particular project, so they've got to go through this new process with the loading on Wood 25 and all that stuff. But anyway, okay, that's all I have. Anyone else, any comments?
Motion to adjourn?
I'm frustrated to the point that the year ended on the 30th of June, and we have not seen the financial results for
Close out.
19. We've got to understand whether it's the computer system, what the hell is going on. It takes 2 months to get information. I mean, I'm very good, I'm very interested in scorekeeping. And you can't keep score if you don't have if you not get the information.
Tom, it's available because the state needs it to figure free cash.
Well, we have a closeout that is required, and the document is sent to DOR to ascertain to
Well,
certify.
then it can be put to the point where this is an unknown item, or is it
Just say it's
in
a draft,
dispute?
or it hasn't been approved. but at least
So
it's-
it's finished, it's done.
It's not gonna be off by 50%,
No.
right?
They have 30 days after close of business, June 31st, or 30th, whatever, and to pay all the outstanding invoices. Some of them go 45 days, but after that time period, if they haven't, and they've closed all the books, then those outstanding invoices have to appear on the warrant, town meeting warrant, to be paid. Because you have to use the next fiscal year's funds to pay that.
I don't think they're gonna show it to you, Tom, until DRS signs off on it.
No, they'll do it, because I think it's in the charter.
I think
Oh, okay.
they have it. And
Okay.
they've showed us, in the past, they've showed us quarterly results with percent expended.
Yeah,
and,
the other part of it
projections.
is that they just take 12 months and spread it across.
Because we've even had that from the school department.
They do not try to estimate when the cash is gonna flow.
Yeah.
No,
And that should be able to happen, because you go back and look at the prior year and just take those percentages and put them in there. I mean,
You want
it's
them
a
to
starting
you need
point.
them to reconcile everything, is
Yeah.
what you want, you know.
So, I
They
mean,
can go years back on the
Yeah.
printout. That's because that's exactly what we use when we do the evaluation.
so my suggestion is that you go to this committee that we belong to, the Association of Town and Finance Committees, and find out what other towns are doing it, and are they doing it the same way, and are there computer systems, are there ways to do it more efficiently? And if we do
Oh,
that,
and
then,
Well, we know it's been done.
huh?
It's been done because they gotta get it to the state within a certain period of time, right?
Yeah, 30
Yes.
days.
So it's just a question, of how come we don't have it?
we need to get Derek here to present it.
Yeah. That's-
Well,
I'll
are
get
we
you
doing
copy.
it the most efficient way?
Yep, I'll get you a copy of it.
That I have no idea.
I
and we'll
mean,
be
the
good to go.
computers are getting to be so incredible.
Yeah, I think
No idea.
the only lag in it maybe, and no, she couldn't be, because she has her own schedule she must keep, and that is Judy in accounting, to finalize this, because I believe Sue Owens from the school department is out. They said she was on vacation, but I believe she's on leave. And Judy has to do both, because there's no one else over there that's certified. So Judy has to do both of them. So that may put her behind, but I'm sure, in spite of that, she is still keeping up with her schedule to DOR, because they get a little antsy, and if they don't have it, we don't get the statement as to free cash. And Derek was mentioning at the last, yesterday's selectmen's meeting, were you at the selectmen meeting, Claire? He was mentioning that possibility, we could be getting certification the day of, which would throw everything. Well, wait a minute, Claire, that's normal. It's the way we do business.
Oh, well.
Did you get all that wood cut?
Yes.
You looking for a second?
I make a motion.
Yes.
Yeah, second.
I made the motion. Let's
Motion's
go.
made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Have a good evening. Thank you very much.
See you next Wednesday.
Hmm?
See you next Wednesday.
for another exciting
Sweet
program.
Claire.
I didn't feel there were to be any
Have
abstentions.
have they given you anything back on how we stand on our pension and